Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and of course our training partners, and those of us who are online. I just want to maybe advise that this time round you may not be able to see the other participants, but you'll be able to hear us. So I want to believe Professor Ngoka is there, who is our chair of accreditation, and probably is still joining. And then we also have others that can join. So we are getting into the introduction, and I just want to be very quick. For those of us who are here physically, you can tell us your name and the institution you are representing. If you are the principal, you say you're the principal, or if you are representing the principal, you can also say, I'm representing the principal. If you are 3 or 2 or more, then you can introduce yourself as an institution. So you can invite your colleague to stand and introduce alongside yourself. So we'll start from the front there. And of course, if you are principal, you can sit in front. You don't need to fear that front, nobody's sitting there. So you can move in front and just sit there. So that we can, those of us who come later, they can join from behind. Thank you. So we start from there, yes.
Bwana Yesu asifiwe. My name is Mr. Langat Hilary. I'm the principal of African Institute of Research and Development Studies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langat.
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm Margaret Ruth Mulamba, representing the principal of Kisumu National Polytechnic. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Mr. Emmanuel Meres, the Deputy Principal in charge of administration at the Eldoret National Polytechnic. I'm representing the principal.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Praise God.
Hallelujah.
Dr. Nishon Njeri for representing the principal and the Eldoret National Polytechnic.
Thank you. You're welcome, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Faith Namai. I'm representing the principal, Nairobi Women's College.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Aphilis Mushani, representing the principal of the Tvet National Polytechnic. I am with my 2 colleagues.
Morning, everyone.
Morning to you.
My name is Luka Chen, representing principal Tvet National Polytechnic. I'm with my colleague.
Good morning.
So are you for Kabete, who is representing the principal? Ruth.
Yes.
And you have 2 of them. Or you are accompanying the one representing the principal. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Tvet.
Okay.
From Tvet National Polytechnic.
Also representing the principal? Oh.
God is good all the time.
God is good. That's his nature.
My name is Pedro Fiona Chen, the principal, Jordan Boston Medical College, Kitui.
Thank you. Karibu.
Good morning, everyone. I am Margaret Wanjuro, Deputy Principal in charge of academics at the Northeastern National Polytechnic, representing the principal.
Which polytechnic? Northeastern. Okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Dorothy Tenai, Principal, North Coast Medical Training College from Mombasa.
Thank you.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Claire Karinga from Nyakubu Medical Training College. I'm representing the principal.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Damaris Melima from Gube Technical Training Institute, representing the principal.
Thank you.
Good morning, colleagues. I'm Galagale Isaiah for the principal at Eldoret Technical Training Institute and deputy principal administration. I'm with my colleague. Good morning.
Morning to you.
Ramwe Wamala, accompanying the person representing the principal,
accompanying the person representing the principal. That's good, yes.
Morning, everyone.
Morning to you.
My name is Brenda Ndiri.
Yes.
representing the principal of Kndi Institute. Advanced Technology.
Okay, thank you.
Bwana asifiwe.
Amen.
My name is Gladys Moyuka, Kenya Institute of Development Studies, Technical College. I'm representing the principal.
You're
Good
welcome.
morning, all.
Morning.
My name is Samuel Anthony Mabele, representing the principal from Kisiwa Technical Training Institute in Bungoma, though he says he will be joining us in a short while.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Richard Corcoran from Outspan Medical College. I'm the registrar representing the principal. With me is the head of Department of Nutrition.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, sweet.
My name is Mr. Odong Samson. I'm accompanying my registrar as part of the capacity building for the department.
Okay.
Good morning,
Karibu, Domo.
everyone.
Yes.
I am Winnie Mokera Momanyi from South Technical Training Institute, Bomet. I'm the Deputy Dean of Students representing the principal.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Wesley Aaron, the principal of the South Technical Training Institute, Kndi County.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
My name is Gachia, the principal in Imperial College of Medical and Health Sciences. Thank you.
My name is Dr. Okeo David, the CEO for the time being in office at Kndi. I'm a professional nutritionist, public health nutrition, and by grace of God, I'm also a pastor. And I like it when people introduce themselves the way they did. On my end, far end is Martin. You can introduce yourself.
Good morning. My name is Martin Gou. Presently working with Kndi as a accreditation secretary. I'm a registered nutritionist and dietitians. I'm also a steward. I'm also a camp steward. Yes.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
My name is Kndi Jr. I work with Kndi under the office of the registrar as a data manager.
Thank you, everyone. Some of them will come in later for introduction, and I think we start. First of all, I want to say that you are all welcome to Kndi. We are a government institution, the only one in Machakos County. And as you see, we are within the Nairobi metropolitan. So it means that we are not far off from the CBD. But I'm sure if there was anybody to continue working alongside Maandamano, it is us that can work. Because we are very far off from the center, where chaos would be, if at all it is. So you are welcome for this meeting that we have, very, very important meeting. We invited the principals of training institutions. We do not have any problem with those representing the principals, because once you have a delegated power, then that delegated power makes you the principal, so you'll carry the burden. Professor Ngoka, can you try to speak from where you are now?
Are you able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, 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 we are able to hear you.
Now you're able to hear me. I've been trying and struggling to speak, but you are not able to hear me.
Thank you, sir. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you very much. My name is Professor Gordon Muka, Professor of Clinical Nutrition and Dietetics at Kndi University, Science and Technology Department of Nutrition Sciences. I'm a member of the Council of the Nutrition and Dietetics Institute and the chair of the Accreditation Committee. Also chair of the Acting for PNC. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. Now we can introduce ourselves. Those who are online, you can just unmute and introduce yourself quickly so that you identify with your institution. We take record and we can proceed from there. Oh, okay, it is well. So Mohammed is coming from Mandera. He's a member of the accreditation committee at Kndi, so he's part of the process as we go on. Can we then continue with the meeting? I think as some will join, they will be introduced later, so we can start officially. Professor Nguka, as the chair of accreditation, on site here we have about 22 participants, of course representing various institutions, attending this meeting physically, and we were expecting about 40 of us, so we are halfway. So with that, we can start the meeting officially with the opening remark. So if you are okay, you can give us a go-ahead and we'll start the process.
Okay. So then we can start. I hope we have already started with the word of prayer.
Yes, we did pray when you were mute.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, then I think I can begin with my opening remark. Okay, thank you very much. So let me take this opportunity to welcome all the heads of institutions that have joined us. And I want to first and foremost appreciate and thank God for giving us the day of today. Now today I would like to emphasize on compliance with the standards. And this is what I would like to share with heads of training institutions. That it is important to comply with standards, especially in the process of training. I would like to bring to your attention this process of having an opening remark, that as we have the responsibility of training students in the area of nutrition and dietetics, human nutrition and dietetics, we have a responsibility to the nation and to the world to be able to produce competent nutrition statisticians that are going to help in resolving issues around food and nutrition security. More importantly, with the health problems under the mantra of universal health coverage. So with that aspect, then it means that the training institutions must be ready and prepared to be able to train these students, to train the professionals around this line to be able to provide services. In training, we have provided at State Nutrition and Nutrition Institute a total of 11 standards that we actually always would like all training institutions to comply with. Within those standards, there are standards that are related to students, standards related to faculty or teachers, lecturers or tutors who are able to provide these students with any standards related to leadership, governance and management of the training institution, standards related to infrastructure, which is key. And within that component of infrastructure, I would like to mention some very important issues. Laboratories are key, and every training institution is expected to actually have up to standard laboratories that are meeting the ISO 17025. And we actually realize that some institutions do not take this component very seriously, and therefore you may end up making students lose out on very important competencies. One of the key labs we actually talk about, there are three major key subdivisions within the laboratory that we talk about at this level. And one of them is referred to as skills laboratory. Within the skills laboratory, we expect the nutritionists and dietitians to be trained jointly with other cadres and be able to know their position within the health systems. We are encouraging the establishment of skills laboratory that match or mimics the so-called hospital system or ward system, in which there's a joint learning with other cadres, including nursing, clinical officers, for those who are training, pharmacists, and other cadres that are involved in providing healthcare services. This enhances cross-cadre coordination in terms of skills. There are also skills that are cross-cutting. For example, one of the key problems we realize is that people did not know that nutritionists should be able to fix a cardiac, which is called a gainism, to be able to even deliver what we call partial parenteral nutrition. Now, nutritionists come out without even knowing what is called a hypothalamic syndrome. Yet they should have known this in the training. Nutritionists also sometimes have not been able to be exposed to some very specific tools of assessment. For example, assessment of vital signs. Just knowing what a pulse oximeter is, just knowing what, for example, a sphygmomanometer or a blood pressure machine is. Nutritionists need to understand and be able to use stethoscope because they need to listen to those sounds and be able to know, for example, whether a patient is breathing properly or not, because that constitutes aspects that they need to be able to even calculate the caloric requirement. Even the thermometer, temperature. Temperature determines, for example, calculation and intervention on the calories, the amount of calories that the patient requires. Now, these ones have previously not been put into place, and therefore affecting the competencies of students when they get out. Now, it is therefore critical that we maintain and sustain, maintain and sustain the training standards as prescribed by the Kndi Nutrition and Dietetics Institute training standards. I've just mentioned a few, but as I've indicated, there are a total of 11 training standards that are required, including research, which is indicated by the establishment of research policies, development of research policies. Clinical practice is well established there, which requires every institution to have, for example, an MOU with an accredited health facility to have clinical placement for students every week, minimum 7 hours, and that is prescribed, but not many have been able to actually establish these standards. It is based on these standards that we've been using to be able to accredit training institutions as institutions that are going to train students to be registered under Cap 253Bs of the laws of Kenya. I would therefore like to appeal, and in this process of my remark, to appeal to all heads of institutions to take training standards very seriously as a key responsibility, actually key constitutional responsibility, that we have to expose our students to high training standards or meet the standards that are required for the purposes of delivering services in the area of nutrition and health. We've always asked a question. If, for example, you are admitted in a facility as the head of a training institution, would you expect your own student to give you services in your area? Would you expect, for example, you are not able to feed by way of mouth? Would you expect your student that you have trained from your various institutions to be able to fix an nasogastric tube on you? If the answer is no, then you can be sure you are not sure of the person. I would say confidently that if I was given a student from Masinde Mulilo University of Science and Technology, I would be able to say, please let that student feed me, because we are sure of the competency that the student has. I would like the same to be with all our training institutions and the heads, that we are confident of your students that have come from your hands, that they are able to deliver services that you barely need, especially within the healthcare facilities, and even outside there within the community. You can be able to recommend them to be able to provide services. But if you are not, then it means you're not meeting those standards, and we would like to encourage you to have those standards to be ingrained into your institutions and completely maintained and sustained all the period until the students are. Otherwise, with that, then let me take this opportunity to declare the meeting today officially open. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, and also congratulations for your vetting. We know you are preparing to be vetted for the chair of municipality, Homa Bay County. So we congratulate you in advance. We just hope that you'll do everything to the best of your knowledge also to ensure nutrition forms part of the systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I think we can now start, now that we have the committee in charge giving us a go-ahead to have this meeting as the secretariat. I just want to say that we are very happy that you have come for this, and as you've gotten it from Professor Nguka, who is also a senior in nutrition training, the most important thing is if we sit back from the institutions where we are and we visualize the resources we have and the training materials we have and the expertise training and the examinations we give, and finally the professionals students we push to the market to become professionals, are we sure that they can deliver quality, particularly with a focus on health facilities? Once you get into the training, just sit here, sir. Once you get into the training of nutrition and dietetics, it means you have entered into training of health care professionals. And these are going to feed into the health sector within the laws of Kenya. The question is, are we getting adequately trained professionals? That's a question that you can answer yourself. You don't need to respond to it. By the time we finish this, probably we'll know whether we are really doing it. And what does it take to train a health professional? So let me start by giving you the mandate and the functions of the institute, just in case some of us are not aware of what Kndi means. Kndi is an institute which is established under an Act of Parliament, that is Act number 18 of 2007. And this particular act gives the institute the mandate to train, register, and license nutritionists and dietitians in the country. It also provides for regulation of standards and practice of the profession. And I would want to share my screen so that you go with me on what I'm actually presenting. For those who are online. So, good. And also effective participation of nutritionists in all matters relating to nutrition and dietetics in the country, including those that are nutrition sensitive and those that are nutrition specific. And so I want to say that that mandate is very important because it is a parliamentary mandate. Now, in the health sector, nutritionists are recognized within the executive order under the office of the president within the Ministry of Health. And so we expect them to perform just like the medical doctors, the nurses, the clinical officers, the occupational therapists, and of course perioperative theater technologists, and all that line of medical professionals. All these, they work together, even public health technologists and technicians. So they are a group of professionals we expect to feed into the service delivery in health sector. Now, we have a council that is governed by, we have an institute that is governed by a council, and the council is led by the chair. The chair is a professional elected. But we also have institutions represented, and some of those institutions include Tvet institutions, that is mid-level colleges. In the council, we also have universities represented, and Professor Nguka is representing the universities. So we have Tvet represented by Madam Purity Chege. And we know that also at the committee level, we have NEC represented. We also know that we have KICD represented. And all those work together to ensure that the council executes this mandate. So in the governance structure, we have the council, which operates through the committees. And one of such committees is the Technical Committee of Accreditation. And that is where we have the KICD and NEC, all chaired by Professor Nguka, who is representing the training institutions. And we also have representatives from those training institutions, like universities and the Ministry of Health. That is the most important committee for this meeting today, the accreditation. The other committees are disciplinary, and those are specific for professionals, and of course the institutions that probably don't comply, they can make decisions on what we do as a way forward. But all these committee work are coordinated by the office of the CEO, where Dr. Keo is executing as the executive. And so the day-to-day operations and ensuring that there is compliance with training is a mandate given by delegated authority to the CEO. And so I have invited all CEOs of various institutions. When you are a principal of an institution, you become automatically the CEO of that institution by virtue of execution. And so you are the principal accounting officer for such an institution. Of course, if it is Tvet, then we have board of governors who then works together with the principal as the secretary to the board. And so with that, we know that you also take full responsibility for those you train and we send to the market. Now, we have in the Nutritionist Act, which now has been amended once in 2019, Cap 253B, various functions of the council under Section 6 of that Act. And one of the most important functions for you as training institutions is the function in line with accreditation matters. That is number 6, paragraph D, which talks of approving institutions for purposes of training persons to be registered under this Act. So as long as you are training nutritionists or dietitians, we expect you to be subjected to quality assurance processes, which in our Act we have referred to them as accreditation. And also, we expect you to train professionals that can be admissible into the professional practice. Now with that, you are supposed to be approved as a trainer. And for you to be approved as a trainer, then you must comply with the training standards. And Professor Nguka has mentioned the 11 standards that we use to accredit facilities training our professionals. And you are aware of it because we have shared this many times. With that, therefore, with that background, it is important to say that today's meeting is based on that section we are talking about as approval. Now, we have had a lot of issues to do with training at mid-level colleges. And one of the issues that is very core in our heart is the fact that the outsiders, the whistleblowers, and the industry are saying that professionals are not properly trained. I don't want to use the term half-baked. They are not properly trained by you and your team. And that is cutting across almost all our training institutions. Now, when we want to find out the reason why, it is you to tell us why, but we'll also tell you why that is coming out very clearly from the industry. For us to ensure that that whistleblowing or concern raised by the public is done well and attended to properly, we must engage you as the trainers from all aspects of training to dig deep and find out why, and then two, to make sure that you are compliant all the times. And so I would want to get to the next level. You can read that section 6 of the Act some other times. The delegated power of operation under section 7 gives the CEO that direct mandate to engage you so that we can come to the table and agree on how we want to move forward as training institutions that are operating within the ethics of leadership and integrity. Now, some people say that integrity is about personalities, but integrity can also be about an institution. If an institution is not complying, then that institution as a person has no integrity. We went out to do inspection for KMTC campuses. They are not here because they have a special meeting. There are so many campuses, so we excluded them from this. And we discovered one thing, that if you go to an institution and you find that in the core values they have put integrity and accountability and professionalism, and you find them non-compliant, do they agree with that core value in terms of participation or, processes that they are executing? For example, if you're saying our core value is integrity, accountability, and professionalism, and you're a trainer who does not have a license to train, is that integrity? Now, when the trainer has failed to be a professional or accountable, then it means the person who has engaged the trainer is also affected. By proxy, becomes also of low integrity. For example, if you're a principal who has engaged a professional that is training and is non-compliant, then it means section 36 also applies. Anyone who employs a person who is supposed to be licensed and is not licensed to work for them is non-compliant, is out of order, and therefore is liable for conviction. It is also there. That goes against the integrity. Now, all these things interfere with our training, because then we are training people and getting them out of the colleges into the professional practice when they are not sure whether they need to be accountable, they need to be of good integrity, or whether they need to be, of course, professionals outside there. It starts from us. And so it starts with the principal who does not tell their professionals to comply always with a professionalism. So that is a statement I'm making, that the CEO has a direct link with you to ensure that we follow the laws as required. And this delegated power can also be extended to the accreditation committee and to any other agent of Kndi. If we send somebody to come and do a survey in your institution, by a letter, it indicates that they have been given an authority of entry to find out what goes on there. And Section 7 takes charge of that. So coming back now to the training provisions, and that is the training mandate. Now, many times people have thought that Kndi is a trainer, and so they want to find out from us whether we can admit students into nutrition. Now, Kndi does not train directly. Kndi operates within the Act as the chief trainer, but by proxy, the training institutions do this on a day-to-day basis. And I want to say that when you are our trainer, then you become our partner. But you cannot partner with Kndi if you are non-compliant. Now, there's no partnership you can enter or an agreement you can enter with a non-complying institution. If we do that, then it means that ourselves, we are violating the same Nutritionists and Dietitians Act, and we are liable for convictions under Penal Code 63 from 133 there, 132, 131, 133. Because if you are given a law to implement and you are not implementing it properly, you are also a violator. Now, if you are our trainer and you're not training within the framework of approval, then again, we are not partners. So those you are training are really not professionals. But we know that we call them professionals because we are in that journey of compliance. We know that. And that is why we call you from time to time, and sometimes we write. Now, we found it very, very, very difficult to keep on writing when non-compliance levels are growing day by day. And we say the best is to invite you here and have a one-on-one so that we can chart a way forward and how best we want to help Kenya. The worst thing with Kenyans is that when we have responsibility, we don't take that responsibility as our own. We take it like we are working for someone. And so what we do it because we were engaged in that position to work for someone, and that is to work for government. We do not take it as our own. Now, if all of us took it as our own, I was talking to one of the principals, and they were saying that, payment of accreditation fee for inspection is very, very expensive for us. And we need to get time because we don't even have students, which is good, which is okay. But one question I asked the principal, are you a government institution? And did your board approve that you have that program of nutrition and dietetics in your institution? If yes, then that is not your money. So you cannot say that it's expensive. You can only tell us that you did not budget for it. And so we are waiting to budget for it so that next time if our board approves the budget, then we can pay. That is understandable. Then we can give you time. But you cannot call public money your money. I cannot call public money my money. I have to do a budget and execute a budget. And if you don't execute a budget, you are a non-performer. And that is the truth. If you are given 100,000, you budgeted for it, and you return 50,000 to the National Treasury, for example, if you're an exchequer, or you tell the board that this year I've saved 50,000. If I was in that board, I would recommend for you to be taken home instantly because you're a non-performer. You are put as a principal to spend money within the budget required, and by the time the year ends, you are supposed to have zero balance. If there's anything you are supposed to do is to be accrued for use in the subsequent months for payment of maybe suppliers and the rest. So saving money is not a performance. I was in a university where our late VC went and told Parliament that Maseno University is liquid, and therefore we are the only ones who can operate and pay our salaries and other things without waiting for capitation. And that year, the Parliament reduced our budget by 70%. So we were only given 30% of what the Parliament recommended in the previous year. And when he asked, he was told that you are liquid, so you can get the other 70% from what you have saved. And so he had to go to corners of Parliament, talk to members of Parliament, so that the remaining 70% would be released. For him, he thought he was performing. But for Parliament, they said, okay, then he's being given excess. Now, if you spend more money until excess, then you can request for excess. And say that last year I spent 100 million and 10, and you gave me 100 million. So this time I'm requesting for a budget of 120 million because the variance must be 10%, either on the negative or on the positive. But what do you want to fund? What you want to fund is public affair. So you cannot say, I think I will do away with that program. Then we are also going to say, we think we will recommend for your removal, because then you are not supposed to be there. And you know, I'm saying this with humility, because if you are given a role, for example, now let's use the government of Kenya, you are told, okay, you are the Minister for Health, and this is your responsibility. Following me all the times and praising me in meetings will not help you in the execution. What we'll be asking, were you given this? Did you do it? How much did you do? Did you perform? Nobody will take charge for you. So you have the responsibility, therefore, you have to undertake it. Now the question is, we said we are going to train nutritionists. We say yes. That's why the program is there. So then train nutritionists to the level that is required. If that is the case, then Section D applies. And it says, Kndi will approve institutions as institutions for purposes of training persons to be registered under the Act. And that is read together with the miscellaneous provision under offenses in Section 34. And this is what it reads. It says, it says, any person being in charge, let me show it so that you have it, being in charge of a training institution which is not approved by the institute as an institution for for training persons seeking registration under this Act, who, one, admits to the institution under his charge any person for purposes of training in nutrition and dietetics, and B, purports to be conducting courses of training or examination under this Act or regulation made thereunder, issues any documents, statement, certificate, or seal implying that the holder thereof has undergone a course of instruction or has passed an examination prescribed by the institute, and D, issues any document, statement, or seal implying that the institution under his charge is approved by the institute as an institution for training persons seeking registration under this Act, commits an offense and is liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 500,000 shillings or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 years, or both, depending on what the judge will have made. This provision was given in line with the approval under Section 6D, and it is what takes charge of training of nutritionists in the country. So anybody who wants to train, they have to comply with that. Now, our role is just to ensure that there's compliance. And how do we do that? When we engage towards compliance. Now we understand that things may not be very good sometimes for private institutions in business. We may also understand that the government of Kenya is also struggling with meeting budgetary requirements. But that has not stopped compliance. So we must find out how to comply. There are only two ways. You either close the program and tell people that you don't want to train, or you look for more money from the government. Or the investors therefore have to put in more money from their pocket if there's no money. That is good on money. But the most important are other parts of the standards, the trainer and the training resources. So we'll be looking at those areas that we think needs to be adjusted or improved by all training institutions for uniformity of the professionals we are training. Now, other than training provisions, in line with your training, we also have a component which we call indexing. Indexing is inscribed in the law under section 13Q. The accreditation committee is given a mandate to carry out indexing of students enrolled in various institutions and monitor their progression or their progress. It is in the Act. What does it mean? In the Act, it is defined, and I will move it so that you can see if you're looking for it. In the Act, it is defined as a process of keeping records of individual student pursuing a course in nutrition or dietetics for purposes of monitoring and subsequent professional examination, registering or registered and licensed under this Act by interpretation section 2. So, before a student is admitted into the professional examination or for the university's internship program, they must be indexed. And they have to be monitored all through that process until they graduate. And we must have full record of transitional rate of students when they enter and when they go out. And all the possible problems that may have occurred along the value chain of training must be with us as the institute. That is what we call monitoring. This process is mandatory. So there is no institution that can say the students can index the way they want because it is their responsibility. No. It is also your responsibility not to house a student that has refused to index. Yes, it is their professional responsibility, but you have the obligation to either allow them in class or let them go home until they are indexed to be called now nutrition students and professionals in waiting. So that is why indexing is now a law. It is the responsibility of the training institutions to ensure that all students in session, what I mean is that whoever has been admitted into the program are indexed within the first 1 month of admission. So you admit them today, you give them 1 month to be indexed, and you show them how the indexing takes place, and they take full responsibility of indexing. Now I want to say this process is now online, purely online activity, and our IT will demonstrate how it's supposed to be done. It's purely online. Now, indexing will help us to keep track of the students enrolled in all training institutions as preliminary fulfillment of the requirement of examination. Now, our government requires that we give clear data on the number of students currently pursuing nutrition and dietetics in the country. And that comes in during the economic surveys for Kenya Bureau of Statistics. We cannot give that accurate data if we don't know how many students are indexed from your institution. And so probably we will be relying on those who have taken their own initiatives to get into our portal and index. That is a wrong data given to the government. Now, the contributors towards that wrong data include yourself. And that is why we have to find out how are we going to index and index properly for the benefit of the country. Now, why do we say so? If we know the number of students who are pursuing nutrition now, and the government also knows the number of professionals who are employed by public sector and private sector, and those that are unemployed or unemployed, then the Ministry for Planning purposes, the Ministry of Planning, the Ministry of Health, and any other ministry, including Trade and Agriculture, will now have a responsibility to find out how they can work on the HR matters for health sector. That is the human resource. Because there's now clear data. It is our responsibility to do that. Also, we want to know whether the numbers of nutritionists are going down, like we have been indicated for. We also want to know how we would enhance the numbers to go up. If we don't get this data, then it is not possible for us to help you and to help Kenya from our side. Now, indexing is a paid process. And we know that the first installment for indexing includes the first installment for examination. Indexing alone is only 3,000 Kenyan shillings. But they pay 8,000 with the first installment for examination. Why? When students wait until they graduate to pay for examination, some of them miss to do exams because they don't have that lump sum to pay. And so we made it easy so that they can start this early. By the time they graduate now, they only have a balance of 5,000 to now sit the professional exams. It is made easy for the parents. And so the first installment is 8,000 upon admission. Once we have that, the tracking process can begin from your side. And this is a full responsibility for the training institution. Now, there's something we have never implemented, but today we want to inform you so that when you go back to your institutions, you can also tell the students, maybe during orientation, the implication of not being indexed. Any student that is not indexed will have to be charged a penalty of 5,000 if it is not done within 1 month. And for institutions collecting indexing fee on behalf of the students, if they don't remit it within 1 month, they will be charged a penalty of 100,000. And we know of cases of institutions that have been charged that penalty and pleaded for waiver. Now, some also may just wish to pay. But I can tell you as a public officer and also as a Kenyan citizen who value money meant for public use, that if you pay penalty for a mistake that you have made, then you are liable and responsible for Kenyans while you are misusing their money. I know there are some institutions that have told us, instead of looking for this 400,000, why don't I just pay 100,000 renewal every year? Then I continue training without compliance. They have not said it direct, but the behavior indicates to us that is what they are saying. Because somebody puts 100,000 in Kendi's account and said, you can extend for me my interim license. It is wrong because that is non-compliance. Now, the money you are using to pay for extension, which is not counted as part of accreditation, is somebody's money, either an investor's money or public money. So you have a responsibility to explain why we are misusing money for something that you could have prevented when it is too early. So that also goes with indexing. If you collect on behalf of students, then you are supposed to remit the money and tell the students, this is the portal, this is how you are supposed to be indexed, and you follow up to see how many of our students are not indexed. and how many are indexed. And those who are not indexed, you tell them you are not eligible as a student of nutrition and dietetics. So that is they are in a wrong course for that matter. So with that, therefore, we advise your institution also to take this as a matter and a component of regulation, so that we have students that are being trained to become professionals right the way when they are admitted. So with that, therefore, I would want to invite Kevin to come and show us how online indexing is done, and also how verification should be done by the institution responsible for training, because it's an online activity. So Kevin, you can come and show us that. You can minimize what I have.
Okay, thank you, Doc. My name is Kelvin Musando. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, so I will do a short presentation on how ICT at Kndi assists in the indexing process. So I'll just make a short remark before I do that. So the process of indexing in the nutrition and dietetics profession has been made more accessible and convenient, with the application being available online and individual to every student. Institutions collecting indexing payments on behalf of their students are required to submit the information to Kndi. So what I'll do, I'll go to Google Chrome, which is one of the most used browsers. So to access Kndi data on indexing, it's very easy. You can just go to Google and search Kndi space indexing, and it will give you a basic Google search. The first option, which is indexing, when you click and open on it, will load the website. Okay. We'll load the website, and you'll be able to scroll through. Let me zoom in so that you can see it clearer. Okay. You'll be able to scroll through and see all the information about Kndi indexing. So what I'll present to you today will include from that section, from number 3. So our CEO has already explained the purpose of indexing, who is supposed to be indexed, and the process of indexing. So I'll bulk up on that by showing how the online indexing process is done. So the 3 main documents that are required for upload are the passport size photo, copies of national ID, or a copy of a valid immigration or passport documents, and the third is the copy of KCSE certificate. So these are very key documents that will be required for the student to upload when they are registering online for indexing. The chargeable fees on doing the online indexing, the chargeable fee is 8,000 shillings, which is broken down to 3,000 shillings for indexing and 5,000 shillings for the first installment of examination. All right. So the payment process. The payment process usually occurs on the first contact with the website or with the application. And once the student has given us the basic information, which is the name, the national ID, the email address, the phone to be contacted on, and the institution that they come from, they are sent an invoice via email. And a notification is also sent on their phone number. So this invoice contains details on how they can make the payments via M-Pesa using the Kndi pay bill, and it is automated by automatically or specifically entering the invoice details that will be specific to a certain application and specific to the student. So on that note, I'd like to note that a key error that I've seen or we've seen students make is they share the invoice numbers, which will probably end up making a payment for someone else because the whole payment process has been automated. Once you use the invoice number to pay via pay bill, Safaricom notifies us and it automatically clears your application to the next stage. Okay. So what I'll do now, on section number 6, there is a direct link to the indexing site or online application form. So once the student comes to this page, it will load shortly, they will first be met by a pop-up that gives you the basic information. Let me zoom in a bit more, that you can see. Will give you the basic information on the indexing process. So it will first tell you what an index number is. It will then share the academic requirements for indexing, that is the minimum entry grade for either certificate, diploma, or a degree. Once the student reads and understands, they'll click on continue, and they'll be able to be shown again how to apply and what documents are required for the application. So at least at this point, as the student continues interacting with the system, they're able to have a first-hand account of what is needed and check on the details that they have, either on the KCSE to see the core subjects. If there is any issue, they can also quickly confirm with us via phone call or email if there are any remedies, which now we have the upgrading of the core subjects so that they can be able to move forward in the case that their mean grade is correct. Right. So the next stage is what they receive upon completion of indexing, which basically shows there is the index card and the Kndi prospectus. So the last step is, again, clearly showing the student on what they're supposed to pay and how they're supposed to pay, even before they receive the invoice on their email. Okay, so this is a live showing, so I won't go all the way up to how the payment will be shown, but this is the basic interaction with of the student with the system. So the main two key steps that the student will usually check with us is on the professional upgrade of examinations. So there are those students who, unfortunately, were not able to meet the entry grade requirements in the core subjects, but their mean grade was correct. For these students, we'll advise them to come register with us for the professional upgrade examination. And once they have sat for the examination and passed, we require them to notify us. They do that by clicking either yes or no, so that upon assessment of the application, we can be able to tell how we can treat the application of this certain student. So if they had not done professional upgrade, and for example, their chemistry, biology, or mathematics grade was not up to the requirement, or any core subject there that can be, which is, let me scroll down so that you can see. So maths, geography, yes, the screen is still being shared. Let me confirm. It's not shared. Okay, sorry. Let me do that. Is it? I think it's okay now. Okay. So the three main the subjects that are interchangeable are maths, geography, physics, home science, and agriculture, or English and Kiswahili. Biology and chemistry have to be the assigned grade that was gazetted. Okay, so in those instances that the institution collects fees, indexing fees, for a particular student or for your students, we will require you to submit to us. Let me go back so that you can see the details clearly. Okay. From here. Yes. Okay. So in the event that you collect a fee, indexing fees for your students, we'll require you to, one, present the deposit slip or a check for the payments. And you also have a cover letter showing the name of the student, national ID, email address, phone number, the total amount paid by the student, the institution admission number or registration number of the particular student, so that we can be able to identify them upon registration. What we'll do, we'll also encourage you to advise the students who have paid through the school the indexing information, the indexing fees, for them to go to the online platform and register. So they'll receive an invoice number like every other student, but what we are going to do on our side, we'll check on the information that you have given us, and we'll check on the amount paid, and we'll be able to now manually clear those invoices. For those ones who you've not collected their indexing fees, they can just be able to apply normally, get the invoice, and pay via M-Pesa on their own. So there are two ways. If you collect indexing fees for your students, you can just give us that information that I've said there, or the student can do it by themselves. So upon this first interaction with the system, once the student payment has been verified and the invoice has been cleared, the quality assurance officers here at Kndi will assess, verify, and validate all of the documents and information that the student has sent to us. This information is now available for the institution so that they can be able to see, which I'll show you shortly. Let me just scroll down. Okay. So on this same page, you can be able to, if you check on number 6, this line over here, which says, to verify the status of professional indexing, follow this link. So if you click on the link, it will forward you to this page. So this is a very simple page that institutions can now use. If you have students in your department, nutrition department, you can now be able to quickly follow up and see how their index status is. And there are various responses that the system will give you, which I'll be able to perform to you so that you can see. So one, I'll select a student who has uploaded, who is yet to upload their documents. So this is a student who has, sorry. So this is a student who has paid, done the first initial application, and we are waiting for them to now give us their documents and more information. The documents, which are the KCSE certificate, a passport photo, and the national ID. So let me enter the national ID number so that you can see. And you have to enter it in complete. Okay. All right. So as you can see there, it will give you three columns in the response, which is one, this indicates that the student has not received an index number, so no index number, the name of the student, and then it tells you that Isnino is yet to upload all the requested documents and the information to complete the indexing process. A personalized link was shared directly via email for upload of the requested documents and information. So there is another key element there. Once the student pays, there is a specific link that goes to their email, and this link is not supposed to be shared between one student and the other. We've also had similar cases where a student pays and then they receive a link, and then the friend asks them, have you received a link to upload your documents? I've not received one. They share the email, and then the student who is not supposed to be uploading the documents on that link uploads their own personal documents, and then they have wrong information. So that one will lead to penalties, because we specifically say as we send the emails that this is a personalized link which is specific to you and your application, so that you can be able to feed us the information to get your index number. So that is one. The second instance is for a student who has done the initial application and then has not paid. So you'll get this kind of response. Let me just type in so that you can see. 767. All right. So as you can see there, on the first column, again, it says no index number, and then the name of the student, who is Njuguna Christine, and then it says Christine is here to make complete payments for indexing. A specific invoice was shared directly via email with instructions on how to pay. So I'll do 3 more so that you can see all the types of responses. So the next one is for a complete application, and the student has been assigned an index number. 707. Okay. So as you can see, now the first column shows the index number of the student, the name of the student, and then it writes Ian has completed the indexing process and received a Kndi index number. So the next one is for a rejected application. Okay. So this one will bring a response of Hillary has a rejected application, sorry. The reason for rejection has been shared via email. So in these cases, you'll find maybe the student does not meet the entry grade requirements, and we have suggested to them to go ahead and apply for professional upgrade so that they can upgrade the core subject that they had not passed. So the last one is a upload of any corrections to be made, either on the documents or on the information that, the biodata that has been submitted. That's 399 7529. Very tough. 39987. Okay. So this last one is for a student who, one, has done the initial application, has paid, has uploaded the documents and the information that was requested, but now after assessment of the application, there seems to be an issue either with the documents or the information submitted. So now you can be able to make a follow-up. So you can see it even shows the time that the student received the correction there, so that we can cross-check and see if there is any issue, maybe they lost the link or any other issue, so that we can be able to make a follow-up. Okay. So this tool will assist HODs, lecturers, or any other interested party in the department to be able to make a follow-up on the students that you have within your department in nutrition and dietetics, so that you can be able to also have the resource directly from Kndi, so that you can be able to check if a student has any issue. You can be able to report to us if they are not able to, and they can also be consistently, once they apply, consistently know how the application that they've made is going. And also on your end, it will assist us to be able to follow up on each student, because since the application went online in 2020, yes, 2020, the online applications have been individual to every student, and we found that maybe some of the students take too much time to be able to make this application, since the onus is on them. At least this one will allow you to be able to make follow-ups and keep some of the students responsible to avoid any unnecessary penalties, especially on making of the payments. And also it will assist them to understand at which level the application is, because we also see in the data that we have, some students have paid and they've either made an error during application and they forgot about it. So at least now they can come and type in the ID number, and also you as the interested party can be able to type in the ID number of your specific student and be able to just make a follow-up, so that we can keep this application process consistent and done on time. So again, I'll just go back to Google so that I can show you how we can access this, if at all. Okay, I just wanted to come here. So to access this, just go to Google and type in Kndi indexing, for those who were not here when I started. And when you do the search, it will show you responses. The first response is indexing. When you enter or click on the link, it will open up and it will load all the information that you need to be able to check on the process of Kndi indexing and all the requirements that are needed. And if you scroll all the way up to section 6, here at indexing application procedure, that is where you'll be able to get the indexing verification, so that you can, that tool you can use to check on the indexing status of your students. So these measures at least make the indexing process a bit more efficient and effective, so that we can be able to have a seamless experience for the students and also the institution and the organization, that is the Kndi Institute, so that we can be able to make it a bit easier for the online application for each and every party. So thank you so much. That is my presentation.
hope Kevin has done well, because silence means either somebody has done very well or they have done poorly. Those are the two options. I request that if you have understood, you support him or you motivate him to feel like he has done something. You can clap for him. You know, when you travel to outside Kenya and you go for a conference, if you're a scientist, one of the things you will see different or done differently outside compared to what we do is that anytime somebody makes a presentation, regardless of the integrity of science, people will stand up and clap for them. And it is a culture all through. But sometimes we also do it in Kenya, but we forget, or we just find out what really was that for now. And people get discouraged, demoralized, and they cannot come back. But even if you can't clap, you can also use your leg. So that should be a culture even in our own training institutions. When a student has done well, if you appreciate them, they will do better. When a principal has done well, you appreciate them, they will do better. So appreciating one another is very critical, and I think, Kevin, you've done very well. At least you know indexing is now purely online, and it is possible to fast track. Our main aim for this is to ensure that your institution is listed as an indexing institution. And then 2, to ensure that you know your students. Many times, principals don't know students because they're dealing with so many other students. But I know of one principal and one DVC of a college that knew almost all students and could call them, majority of them, by name. But even if you didn't want to know them by name, you can know them by register. If you tell the head of department, can you give me the list of students who are indexed, it's at your doorstep. That is now accountability. And that is why we have brought in the verification aspect so that the HOD can be assigned that responsibility to verify and update the principal with the data. And that is a responsibility of the institution. Because if you don't have a student complying within your institution, then you are not doing well. You must ensure that all your students are compliant with all the legal requirements, because this is now a legal requirement. So please help us do that. After this, maybe our indexing unit will be communicating as a reminder of what needs to be done in the next few months to ensure 100% indexing. Now, why do we want to index early? Sometimes students came here when they did not meet the requirements, and so they were not able to be admitted into examination. The mistake had a root cause from their admission point. If that happened, they would have been advised to enroll into professional upgrade exam, or otherwise told not to pursue the subject. If a parent has taken time to pay school fees for 4 years, only to be told that you are a student, your child cannot be admitted into professional exams. And even if there was an option, you would still find that student, particularly those from Northeastern. That is why we have gotten majority, including a member of parliament coming to us and an MCA, to force that this student must be admitted into the program when they have E in all subjects. Now, if we knew this early, we would stop that person. So it is our responsibility. And because we are partner trainers, please help us do that. Now, I want to get, before we get into out for some tea. Tea for us here means either tea itself or coffee or juice. So let me put it in advance. So if you meet with juice, it's still tea. Okay? Before that, I want us to go into some legal notices When we discovered that there was a problem with the training institutions when it comes to knowledge about fees. Fees means fees for accreditation purposes, both at interim level or at final or full level. We also discovered alongside that there were institutions that were admitting students based on NEC requirements that only had a basis on matters of average mean grade and did not consider the cluster subjects. Now, in the regulation, Kndi defines both the aggregate and the cluster subjects. But NEC somehow only considered the aggregate mean grade. So, majority of such students who did not meet the minimum requirements for cluster subjects found themselves being barred from sitting examination. And so we had to come up with a cushioning methodology for us to ensure that we legalize the process. And that is how we began to come up with various legal notices. So in 2019, we came up with a legal notice for training institution that was purely focusing on fees. And we had shared this with all the principals. Now, this legal notice defines exactly how much you're supposed to pay for interim license, which is $250, for full license for diploma and degree at $400, and for certificate at $300. So when you look at what I have shared on the screen there, this is a legal notice within the Nutritionists and Dietitians Act. And it is called Training Institution Fees. And all the fees for both the professionals trained and training institutions are listed there. So we have it here. Interim license is $250. Training institution full license for degree is $400. For diploma, the same, $400. And for training institution, for certificate, is $300. This is the fees. So even as you go back, you should have this in place. Now, the counting of payment of that fees starts when you have applied for interim license and you have been allocated interim license. It does not depend on when you are inspected. And I know we have had issues with many training institutions because they thought that because they were inspected and they didn't pass, so then they had paid their full license. So that remained in the same state. The 400, the 250 is interim license for 1 year. So if you are given interim license today, 16th March, come midnight of 16th March 2024, it expires. So you're supposed to have applied for full license to avoid vacuum. When you apply for full license and it is certificate, your training, you pay $300. And at the time you pay, you invite us for inspection. So we come physically to inspect based on the 11 training standards. Now, if you pass, we award you a license for a period of 4 years. Now, if you fail, we give you conditions on how to make sure that you are compliant, which normally is in 3 forms. The first one, you can have a straight pass, and you have 14 days, you get your full license. The second one, you can be given an extension of 3 months so that you can work on the gray areas and comply. The third one, you can be given 6 months, and that is the last one. But sometimes you may not finish within 6 months, and then you have to inform us that we give you an extension, which we can do, but not more than 9 months. So we can give you another extension, but when you're just sure that 1 year has not hit on the timeline, you comply. That is not chargeable. Now, if you are given 3 months, 6 months, and you have not talked or mentioned or tell us what exactly is going on by writing, which we have to file, we charge you a penalty of 100,000. So you find the finance here automatically loads that 100,000. And we say this when we're delivering the report. Now, if you have written to us and we have allowed you to extend for another 6 months and then for another 9 months, and you fail to comply and there's a justifiable reasons as to why you have not complied, then again, we can allow you 1 year and you pay 100,000. And that 100,000 cannot be paid twice. So when you pay 100,000, we give you another 3 months, another 6 months. Now, if it hits 1 year, we stop you from training because then you are chronically non-compliant. And so we don't want that money. And that is why we had stopped many institutions from paying 100 to continue training. That is on the cycle of 4 years. Now, when you are inspected, on interim 1 year, it expires, you are inspected, you have not passed, or you are inspected and you have passed, you have 4 years with a full license before a cycle is complete. As soon as the cycle is complete, automatically the finance department, it will load into your account for another cycle, even if you were not passed. Because the process of training continues even if you did not pass. Now, let me give you an example of maybe a training institution that was inspected 6 times, and failed 5 times. Took 8 years. They had 2 cycles of payment, and it probably shocked them because they were saying, we never got a license. Now, they did not get a license because they did not want to get a license through compliance. But the cycle continues until you tell us that now we have stopped training and we're no longer admitting students into this program, so let the cycle be put on hold. If that is in our record, then the finance will not load any cycle or any penalty for that institution. And that is why when you get your statement, you can be shocked. Sometimes you have higher amounts that you never expected, yet it is the cycles that have elapsed. Once, twice, 3 times. As soon as you register with us at interim. Even the institutions that have not trained, they still have cycles going on until they tell us that we are no longer training. Even the professionals who are renewing their licenses, it continues until they say, I no longer practice, and they surrender back their certificate. So you'll notice that for those of us that have certain balances that are not real for them, is because the cycles have elapsed. And so, because it is a law, you can see Bonusiemo is wondering, I just paid the other day, that is because you did not comply, because after giving you, let's say, that was January? May last year. We gave 3 months. And to date, we have not had. It's today we have seen Bonusiemo has arrived. But no communication at all. There we load more money. And so it is something that can be prevented. Because if I have not complied and the time given to me has passed, I simply pick a letter, write to the CEO of the Nutritionist Council, we were not able to do this within 3 months. Therefore, give us an extension for another 6 months without pay. We will do it. After that again, Karibu sir, you can come this side. After that again, we will do the same after 6 months. If you don't comply, we load the money. So this is what I needed to communicate so that you are clear on cycles. Interim, 1 year. After 1 year, certificate, 4 years. Diploma, 4 years. If the cycle is complete, another cycle begins. And then if you have not complied, the cycle of money continues. That also justifies with penalties now. If you're not complying again and again, then we put penalties. And that is now public money being used to pay for penalties, which is not correct. So that is for fees. So when you look at that legal notice, purely is for professional fees. I want to go back to another legal notice, that is 160 of 2020, also together in the same legal notice 267 of 2021. The 160 of 2020 is amending a legal notice for 2015 on minimum training requirements. Now, the way we work with legal notices with Tvet is that we prescribe the minimum requirements and we engage Tvet to indicate that they are in agreement with that minimum requirement. So what we have put as cluster subjects is in agreement with all the institutions that are key stakeholders and published by the Office of the Attorney General. So in this legal notice, we amended 2015 to give us the minimum entry requirement for getting into a certificate level training, diploma, and of course degree. So I'll focus more on certificate and diploma. These are the grades required for somebody to enter into certificate. A mini grade of a D plain, which also is shareable with the KICD curriculum and NEC. But we need chemistry or physical sciences, biology or biological sciences, English or Kiswahili as grade for mandatory subjects, D plain. And then B, we have additional subject, and this additional subject is any other among the list. So we have physics, mathematics, home science, agriculture, and general science. So those are alternatives to mathematics. They are also alternatives to physics. If a student has D plain in home science and has passed in chemistry, biology, English, they will be admitted without upgrade professional examination. When it comes to diploma, we have also the same, and we are talking about C- for diploma. With D+ in chemistry, biology, English, and you can also get the other subjects, mathematics, home science, agriculture, physics, and general science. So they are the same. Those are the minimum requirements for a normal student that has a mini grade which meets the criteria. Now we have cases, and those are the cases we cushioned, and we are still allowing them to continue. The first case is a case of a student who was admitted before NEC and KICD. Before NEC knew that Kndi required cluster subjects for admission into professional exams. Those ones were cushioned with upgrade professional examination. And I would go to that legal notice again. It is called Training Institution Minimum Entry Requirements Amendment of 2021. The legal notice is 267. Now, in this legal notice, we have only added one component. The rest remain as they were in the previous legal notice. But we have said if you pass in Kndi upgrade examination for English, human biology, basic chemistry, and basic mathematics, then you can be allowed into Kndi indexing, admissions, and the professional examination. This is working well for some institutions. It is a paid exercise. Somebody once asked us, why couldn't you then allow us to offer our own exams and basic science training? And our answer was, you cannot bake your cake and eat your cake and still get opinion that you ate your cake well. So we had to standardize this so that all that we are admitted are coming through into the same, are coming in with the same standard. And that is why we had it as professional examination, upgrade examination, not bridging. So it is professional upgrade examination, not bridging. Bridging are no longer done. As soon as a student is admitted into nutrition and dietetics at certificate and diploma level, they are already beginning the journey of being a professional. So whatever they do after that is a professional dealing. So if it is training, it's professional. If it is matters of service, they're doing it as professionals in waiting. So we have that legal notice, which is a law also, allowing us to have students be admitted if they got minimum grades averagely required, but they are lacking in one or two class subjects, then they can be admitted. Now, why did we have to put this? In our own concept, and of course my own conceptualization of education, there is no stupid student on earth. Very interestingly, when we did the pilot with the next students, who were about 1,000, 2,500, thereabout, we discovered that students who scored E in mathematics later on scored for us 70% in our upgrade, with 75% content of mathematics of a high school. Those who scored E in biology, some of them scored for us 90%. We have such records here. Our conclusion was either something happened or they did not pass through proper training. So when we give them people who can teach them and they are part of the high school teachers, they pass the examination when they are on focus. And this has repeated and recurred several times, indicating that they are not dunderheads. So we have sustained that upgrade professional examination until we will be sure that no one else is failing. Now, that alone is helping us to get numbers into the profession, because we need 60,000 nutritionists in the country. Now, don't ask where are they going to work, because I know that is a big question that has come many, many times. We are producing many, but where are they going to work? Continue producing. Because not working is a government affair. The lawyers are not working. They are on the streets. The medical doctors are not working. They are on gazette for not being employed. And if possible, sometimes they even get Cuban doctors to replace them. We don't understand that. The nurses are still not being employed to the numbers required. Continue training, because new programs are coming up that will give them jobs to do. I was reading a story of one of our nutritionists who graduated and never got a job and became frustrated, but is now running home-based visits for healthcare in nutrition and delivering a package on site for those with challenged conditions like diabetes. And she indicates that she has employed over 15 other nutritionists in that matrix of service delivery, which is not government initiated. So it is still possible to train and have the best. Now, how do you ensure that these people who have been trained and have not gotten a job are doing good service? They must be properly trained with proper resources. So they must be competent. And that is where we are headed, so that we produce many but competent practitioners. I know of 3 other students here we have given clearance with the UK government who went there when they were green, but they were competent and are now employers of labor. And they're not doing it in Kenya, they're doing it outside Kenya. Those are degree holders, even diploma can do that. There are a lot of entrepreneurial skills that we'll talk about that these people can also do when they are finished with their learning, not necessarily looking for county government jobs. And with the new development in the health sector, we are also emphasizing that jobs must be created for the nutritionist, either by the county or the national government. But not only that, even the private sector. Who gives a special diet for a special person in our hotel industry if the hoteliers did not study nutrition? Nobody has ever thought about that. And very soon, we are going to engage the hoteliers. That for you to survive in Kenya and offer food in public, and you are offering it across the board, then you must also engage the health aspect for those with special needs. And that means you must have an oversight nutritionist for it. Those are still openings for nutrition jobs. So it is possible. Let us train more. For us to train more, if cluster subject is a problem, we can still allow them to go through our aptitude test, which tests specifically those who want to do nutrition. And if they pass, we allow them to pursue the subject. So that upgrade is still there. And we want you to pick it up again and continue with it, because it is now a legal process. So I go to the next and the last one before we go for tea and come back for the short seminar. I think this is what will give you the new direction of our thinking on matters of training for quality. Now, the status of finances we have noted with concern, and of course, failure to comply with payment of fees, of course, which has led to unnecessary penalties that can be mitigated by you as the principal, so that it doesn't become a burden budget for the board or the council, the private sector, and also for the public, the government. Remember, you have money that you have been entrusted with by the board of governors and by the board of directors for private institutions. And you have also money that you have been given the mandate to manage on behalf of the government through shared capitation, that is exchequer, and your own fee collections. That money must be protected without wastage. And so when I see penalties like what I have seen in what we'll share with each institution, for some of us, it pains, because then you are going to add more money unnecessarily when you could have avoided it much earlier. I know the issues of COVID and the issues of that came up with many people not able to admit many students were there. But some of them are just because we never took responsibility. One principal came here and was saying I think he has not come, that what I have is this amount, but I'm seeing another amount which is on penalties. If I pay this amount, can you waive all the penalties? And the penalty was huge. You say, you're not the one, it's another different one. You know, it's not that one. It's a different one. And I said, okay, then pay today, and you write a letter today, and I waive it today by executive mandate given to me. Because I don't like penalties in my in my account lines. And he did exactly that. Then I said, if you could do this now, of course I'm talking about principals who work with checkbooks. I'm not talking about the ones who are restricted, the ones who have checkbooks in the bag. So he just wrote a check and said, so you sign a loan? He said, yes, okay. Then pay, and then I waive. And I did. The amount was too much for penalty. But if he did that earlier, this penalty would have not appeared in his record. So because by the time I waive, I must get a credit note also set up in that system to convince the board that money was not waived and went into my pocket. So I have to do a credit note, which is very painful when somebody can come from outside and say, we are looking for resources, and you are wavering. You are continuing to waive for institutions that are non-compliant. How do I avoid this? When we are consistent with cycles and payment, and to some extent because of COVID, we had even made it easy that institutions could pay by installment and still continue with the processes of inspection. But still, we don't see this working. So that has led to a lot of outstanding balances for many institutions. And some even think of stopping the program because of what they have seen. I know of a university that came here and said that they are too down and they are about to close and they can't afford because it was 7 times what they should have paid. It's because somebody somewhere was just adamant to even think of paying by installment. So at a later stage, we'll be looking at, now with the principals at a round table, how best do we work out on this so that we don't wait until money is accumulated to pay? Can we agree on certain installments to be paid, depending on your capacity, so that it becomes a continuous process and we do a payment plan, and ensure that you are not badly off also with other activities? Because if you cannot pay accreditation fee for 400, then you cannot buy 2 pieces of mannequins. That is the interpretation for me. If you say you cannot pay 300 for certificate, then you cannot pay teachers also. But you cannot tell me that I'm able to pay teachers, I'm able to buy mannequins, but I'm not able to pay accreditation fee. That's a lie. A mannequin that we need for Skills Lab, 1 piece, let's say for bands, would go for about 120,000 or so, isn't it, Martin? It's about there. Yeah. Now, if you want 4 mannequins, already 400. Now, if you can't pay accreditation fee, then you cannot buy mannequins. And mannequin is just one of such requirements for the Skills Lab. We have other large and small equipments for other labs like food, laboratory. Then it means we are cheating Kenyans. We are not telling them the truth that we are not able to train competent professionals. And then it means Kenyans are going to die in health facilities because of incompetence, which does not only affect nutrition, but affects even medical doctors, even nurses, even public health officers, people who cannot handle patients. So then a common Kenyan says, who has money, says, let me go to India or South Africa. Then they go and die there. Because we never trained our professionals to handle people. because we never invested in resources, because we never invested in quality. Now, for you to reach the status where you can train well, then quality comes first. That means you have to be fully accredited by physical inspection. As we come for inspection, we tell you exactly what you need to ensure that you are training properly. We don't come for inspections with people who don't have competencies. They are serious competencies. Even if the CEO, thank God in this institution, the CEO is also a professional, I will tell you exactly what a nutritionist is required when I come for inspection. Putting administrative matters aside, I will know exactly who a nutritionist is and their position in the health sector, in the health facility, in the community. You can only understand that when we come for inspection on site, and we cannot come for inspection if you don't pay the fees. The best we can do is to say these are non-complying institutions, and we put it on a gazette, on a newspaper. But does it help the public when you're on a newspaper that we're non-compliant? It doesn't. When we can easily work out this and ensure that we are training properly within the standards prescribed. That is something that we'll think about now with the principals. How best do we do this? So that we are all together on matters of training. I want to stop there for now. Of course, we can allow those of us who have come now to introduce themselves, and we can take some snacks and we continue with the snacks, isn't it, Sheila? Because it is basically a simple snack. We are waiting for a bigger lunch. You don't fill your stomach with the small things before you see the bigger one. So we would beg you, because it's even cold, just take what is there. But now we are waiting for a bigger lunch. Even me, I'm waiting. I'll avoid this one. So don't take too much groundnuts. In nutrition, if we want people to eat less, we start by giving them groundnuts. So if you see anybody who gives you groundnuts, just know that they don't want you to eat much. They are preserving their food for another thing. That's a secret for the hosts. If you go, visitors are coming, look for groundnuts. And don't even look for roasted ones. Fry them. As soon as it's fried, it fills the stomach. So instead of 2 pieces of chicken, they will take 1. And you'll have saved. But for us, we are giving you that. There's a bigger lunch, so don't take too much of the groundnuts for those who are taking, and some juice. So I welcome the new Lord. I think I can see Principal from Bombay is here. Karibu sana. You were through with the meeting. Karibu sana. We always meet at the airport every day. I was wondering. Yes.
Okay, Kalistas Wanjala, Principal Bombay TTI. We were held up in another meeting, but we also wanted to make sure that we get to know what is happening in this one that we have just come in now.
Thank you, sir. The next person?
Good morning, audience. Dr. Moronga Godfrey, the principal of Kisiwa TTI, Bungoma County. Thank you.
Non-compliant or compliant?
Compliant.
Next, there's also, yeah.
Morning.
Morning.
My name is Mr. Sam from RFTTF, usually health sciences.
Compliant.
Compliant.
Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Calvin Omondi from Sierra Institute of Technology and the Health Science Department. I'm representing the institution. We are compliant.
Professor Nguka is here and is a member of the board, so I hope he's listening.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Ronald Osimo from East County, Abraham Training College. We are compliant.
Bonosemo, you are trying to comply.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Beverly Manjeri from JFC Mulene College of Health Sciences.
Compliant? Am I non-compliant?
You're working on it.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Mary Helen.
It's okay.
Human Nutrition and Dietetics in JFC Mulene College of Health Sciences in Thika. Okay.
Trying to comply.
Yes.
Okay. Is there someone online?
Good morning.
Morning.
I'm Kevin Bai from Machakos Institute of Technology. We are in the process of complying with the requirements.
Machakos Institute of Technology is compliant. Why are you in the process? No. Unless you have been on leave and you have come directly from there to this place.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Sylvester Ndungu, the principal of East Africa Institute of Service. Compliant.
Sylvester, are you compliant?
Yes, sir.
Compliant. Oh, yes, compliant. Yes. Any somebody? Can we have online?
Kevin Bishuru from Thika School of Medical Health Sciences in Thika. We are very much compliant.
That's okay. I think we can have online. Olivia, I see you want to talk.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Olivia from Commonwealth Estonia. We're in the process of complying.
Can we have another online? Lillian, you didn't introduce yourself. Shelagat, you can unmute and introduce Ali. Okay. So we can stop there for a while unless there's one here. Yes.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Judith Kumara from KIPS Technical College. Very much compliant.
KIPS. KIPS is in the CBD.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
My name is Peter Jovona. I come from Peter College of Medical and Health Sciences. We are almost there. Maybe 1%.
Your 3 months is just about to end. Okay. We have someone online. You can, Babu, Ali, you can introduce yourself. Okay, just in case you need a restroom, we have this first floor, second floor. At the middle, you go your left and you go right. All of them are there. We also have here, but now because of the system that has been put there, we probably recommend you use down. For men, one side, female, down the same. We also have outside there. So meanwhile, we can move there and have our tea. As I said, let's wait for a bigger lunch. Another thing that goes on here, and I like it when everyone introduce themselves. We are probably one of the government institutions, if there is any, that also know that prayer is key. So if you look at your program, you'll see before lunch, we don't eat anything before we pray. So we'll have a short prayer there for those who pray. Then we have our lunch in good time. What is remaining is quite very critical for us. That is the seminars we want to get into for purposes of training. And we request that most of us remain so that I can take you through them, such that when we come for inspection now, it doesn't become an issue again. So thank you very much. We will be on hold for the time being. Those online, you can take your tea also, and of course, you can come back after the tea. So I want to say again that the professional we are training who passes through your hands and come to us for professional examination and require us to give them a ticket or a license to practice must be one who is very, very competent, particularly for middle-level colleges where competency is a requirement, over 70%. The middle-level colleges or the Tvet institutions are the ones who are supposed to run service. Because the kind of a student you train should be the one that is hands-on with service delivery, even better than the level of degree. Because at degree level, there's more theory than practice. But at diploma, we expect more practical, service-oriented delivery than theory. And so there are certain critical areas in our training standards that we must ensure that we put in place on matters of quality to help us come up with competent graduates and then competent professionals. And so I want to take us through a 4-dimension areas where we have noticed many institutions are not doing well. And I will start with a value chain kitchen garden. I just want you to get an understanding of what we mean by kitchen garden in our checklist for training standards. Many times when we ask people what they think about the value chain, when we go for inspections, they show us a plot somewhere with some vegetables in the open, maybe 3 or 4 plots, small plots, and they indicate that is their kitchen garden. But I want us to understand that that is not what we mean. So the purpose for giving you a training standards checklist was for you to also follow up with us to know exactly what would be required for each of the sub-indicator in that checklist. And so we expect as soon as the institution receives the checklist, they go through each item and ask questions. What do you mean when it comes to value chain kitchen garden? Is it that garden that we find behind a house, or is this a teaching aid? So our value chain kitchen garden, that now we are changing to be called food value chain kitchen garden, is a teaching aid. Now, why am I calling it a teaching aid? The kind of students we are graduating now, and then we usher into the professional practice, are those students that can only look for a job in the city or in a town. We call them white-collar students. They have no idea at all the root of what they are managing. Now, as nutritionists are being trained, we expect them to deliver services in health facilities, in the communities, and of course, even at home. And so we expect them to be real, not theoretical. You cannot talk about food which you don't understand where it comes from. You can't. You cannot talk about nutrient if you don't know where the nutrient comes from. And so over 90% of the nutritionists we are training only understand how nutrients are generated from food and what nutrient does in theory, and how to use that food to come up with a diet, and how to use that diet to manage a patient, and how to calculate what a patient requires. We have done very well there, but we have not told them where food comes from. The value chain kitchen garden is a teaching aid for understanding what we call nutrition-sensitive agriculture, which starts from field to fork. When we talk of field to fork, we want to train a nutritionist to understand that food you find in the supermarket or you find in the open-air market has come from a field somewhere, in a village or in a town. Sometimes we go to inspect and we ask, where is your kitchen garden? We are told the weather is very dry and this time round we cannot plant vegetables. So the notion is about vegetable garden. But we ask, what about Israel, where the place is very dry and stony, but they're the largest producers of fruits and vegetables? Where do they get them from? The concept of urban agriculture is not understood by the trainers. Just knowing that if you are in town and there's no space, you can also use the space in the air to grow vegetables is an unknown concept among the trainers. And if you tell them, they will say that is agriculture oriented. So in our concept for value chain kitchen garden, we are talking about a toolkit teaching aid where you can use food produced in the field as vegetable in variety and different food groups also in the same place as animals. So then you can teach all competencies required for a nutritionist in that garden. For example, a nutritionist should know that food comes from soil and the type of soil matters for the quality of food on the table. That's a value chain. So we must teach them soil testing in that food value chain. We must also teach them that in this plot you can have a variety of vegetables, a variety of fruits, and a variety of animals. So when we come for kitchen garden value chain, we expect to see a vegetable garden, an orchard, a fruit garden, a fish pond somewhere, a dairy pen somewhere, rabbits, poultry, those are varieties. And so what we are saying is all the foods that end up being at the table must be demonstrated in the field for that mentality to enter the behavior of a student graduating. So that they know that the food they're dealing with, which they talk about nutrients, has its roots from the farm. So they must understand that. Now, we expect these people to offer services in health facilities and any other places. But the most important is that they should also teach the caregivers and those who are discharged from the facilities how to make their food. For example, you have discharged a patient that does not have food at home. How are they going to take care of themselves when they're at home if they did not get good knowledge on how to access food? So in that food value chain kitchen garden, it is a teaching aid that will teach all nutrition competencies to a student practically. For example, you will teach entrepreneurship from that garden. You will teach principles of human nutrition, macronutrients from that garden. You will teach principles of human nutrition, micronutrient in that garden. You will teach food processing and drying. You will also teach. Okay. You can unmute that. Or mute it. Hello. Okay. Good. Those are people, the groups online, so don't worry. So all the things we teach in classroom are supposed to be demonstrated in that food value chain kitchen garden, so that the competencies that come from there will tell this student that you can start from where you are at home. You are supposed to improve the lives of people in the village, not in town, walking from one point to another. Some of these students who have built that concept have gone home and have improved the lives of mothers, children in churches, in the community, and they have earned money. Let us not build theory. Let us build people from the culture that we know. The last time we had a symposium here with the Italian Institute, the embassy, we talked about very interesting topic on insects, for example. And we said the insects value chain can be a food on its own at home. And we were talking about it with passion, that you can eat enough of insects to get your protein that you want and micronutrients. And grasshopper is one of them. And termites, one of them. And they didn't like it when I said cockroach could also be another one. If we teach people how to prepare cockroach well, and the principle, when it is clean, it's a delicacy. But many people will say that one is not anywhere. Yet, our forefathers ate these things and got enough of their nutrients. But what we are teaching people is how does protein behave when it is at high temperature and when it is at low temperature. So you teach them terms of denaturing, but that does not help a human being. That should be basic science chemistry. But we should tell them, if you take termites, you're passing by Luanda market and you find termites, buy. If you go to Uganda and you get grasshopper, send buy. If you go somewhere at the border of Teso and you get chia seeds, buy. But you can only demonstrate that if they know chia seeds come from soil, from the demonstration plot. So very soon, we have just approved the FAO's nutrition sensitive agriculture package, now for the service providers. But we want also to make sure that all our training institutions bring in that aspect in the food value chain kitchen garden, so that we train people who are practical, who can be a solution to the nation by making them love the soil. You get this? We must love the soil for health to come on board for many Kenyans. When we do that, then the few who remains in health facilities to provide diagnosis and curative services will find it easy to deal with the minority of inpatients. Because our role as nutritionists is to ensure that we prevent people from going to the hospital. But our people must be competent to stop that. So that value chain, we are saying, should be used to teach all critical units in nutrition, not just a demonstration plot, the way we have seen it across. I want to give you an example of what some of our interns used to do when they were going for internships, just a glimpse, but this is only for vegetables. We also have animals. If you see a nutritionist that is properly told that food comes from home, I hope you are able to see that. These ones were our interns from Busia. I think, again, a training institute. You see, these are plots of students, and they were getting their vegetables from there and eating them during their internship program, as they also empower the community to do that. And you will notice the boys and the girls loved it because each of them had plots. They are graduates, they have graduated, they are passed, some are first classes, but now they are in soil. To understand that soil is very important before I start talking about nutrients and health. Soil carries the food, and the food must be of quality, and that quality then I can now use it to intervene. And so they did the agriculture component, and you can see no one was left out there. If you go through, they also harvested a variety of vegetables, a variety of fruits, and you can see everybody was busy. They discovered that you can use, if you don't have land, you can have tile and get your vegetable in that tile. You just import or go and get soil from Nyanza, you bring it to Nairobi and put it behind your house. And you have your vegetables. And if you have several of them, you can still harvest. It never discriminated which color. Even the Indians were doing it. Because they have to understand how this concept works when you need food at the table, before you prepare it the way it is required. You tell me there is no land, it is dry, and you have water that you can harvest, you can still have sacks and get your vegetable. So that mentality can still be passed to the students. And you see, most of the materials there are not soil as such. They are actually containers that you can carry from one point to another. That concept needs to be brought back to the students talking about nutrition, so that it is real, practical, or real solution to the world. And you'll notice this was done for onions, for all sorts of things you can have. You only need to choose your own and do it to the best of your knowledge. And you see, after they had done that, some of them, after harvesting, they were now processing for future use. And when this is drying, they came up with their own technology on how to dry the vegetables for future use, for purposes of training. These are students of nutrition who had graduated. Now we are saying, why wait until they graduate to do such a thing? We can do it when we are still in campus. If we give it more effort. We no longer have 4K clubs, but they were very important. We no longer have farmer field schools, but they're very important. The person who is supposed to ensure this goes on is you and I in that field. And you see, they liked it. They were not saying that, we were trained as nutritionists, so we cannot do this. They liked it at that stage. What we call here is real impact. And you can see, these are their own solar dryers. And they did them and came up with fruits. And they ate. And I also ate. And you see, that is a complete entrepreneur. Now you can sell dry vegetables, still intact with the nutrients. And people can get them at a future date. We have to teach students to have this notion with them. Now, they not only did that, but also worked with community. The women groups that they have around, they say that we will empower them. And you can see they go to the village, they have focus group discussion, and they teach them how to grow these things. They will have prevented problems from getting into if it's adopted. That's a notion we want all our training institutions to buy the idea. And if it comes to other areas that can be explored, is the area of insects, for example. Bees and many others And we have so many of such insects. And the purpose, and you can see how people were very happy, even the villages. They even planted trees in Busia and shared it with them. One household per seedlings. And they follow up. What does it mean when we talk of value chain? This is community now being told, they were distributing now their final products. This is just a sample of what they did. And you can see each mother has a pawpaw to go and plant. This is the value chain, kitchen garden, we are talking about in training, not a ratio plot for vegetables. And that is what we have found out in many training institutions. We want this to be embraced so that the concept can be very clear. And Kndi is still there to explain exactly what was meant in that checklist. So that we don't just put it because of inspections, but to change humanity through our students that we are training. If they come out of this place with that food concept mind, after they have graduated, they will not be waiting only to go to a county hospital. They will start their projects right on the ground, in churches, in households, and everywhere. So when we come to your institution next time, what we expect is a demo of a value chain teaching aid, not a vegetable garden. And you can teach them many things: dryland agriculture concept, grafting. All those things contribute to health. So this is an area that we wanted to bring on board for you to understand where we are headed with the training. Did we understand each other there? It's a basic concept. Did you understand that? I hope when we go back, we will now have a clear picture of what is meant in that checklist. So that we don't just, as inspector, we just come and shout when we are there. But now we have given you the direction. Now, the second component before we get into discussion is the skills laboratory. One of the things that is a problem, that is a problem in this nation, is skills competency. Now, we have knowledge competency, but we don't have skills competency. Now, Tvet was meant for enhancement of skills, the motor skills, rather than the cognitive skills. If I'm not wrong, the Tvet students should be doing it, not saying it. They should be doing it when they go for practice. You want a driver, you'll get it from a Tvet institution, a good driver, for example. So you want a nutritionist that can be hands-on in the health facility, you get it from Tvet. How do you get that? By skills building. Now, right now, we have the health sector, which is suffering a lot, and that is why UHC was brought on board. And there are key cadres for that particular UHC, including nutritionists you are training. But this nutritionist must have skills that are required for them to practice. Now, when it comes to skills laboratory, we are talking about facility-focused skills building, or health facility-focused skills building. We are talking about people who are going to work in level 3, level 4, level 5 hospitals, up to level 6 hospitals. Now, when you go to a level 5 hospital, it is complete with a consultant physician, a nurse, a nutritionist, a pharmacist, a laboratory technologist or technician, and we also have others like operative theater technologists and many, many, many others. Now, this group of cadres must learn to talk to each other when they are still at the training level. The problem we have with nurses and doctors and nutritionists, where the medical doctors seems to be feeling more superior to the rest of the cadres, is because they never had this chance to understand the language of each other at training level. So a doctor trained in Chiromo and Kenyatta Hospital will think that they are the owners of the health facility and therefore the health care fails. Why is it failing? Because the doctor lacks the support group for the therapeutic intervention at the facility. Why? Because they were trained as doctors and they never saw any other cadre next to them. They were trained as clinical officers and they never saw any other cadre. They were trained as nurses and they never saw any other. In Skills Lab, we are talking about integrated training of preclinical skills for our health professional cadres. Integration means a nurse and a nutritionist must know exactly what each does in a ward, for example. So we are talking about a facility which mimics a ward, a typical ward, but in a simulated format. When you talk of simulation, it means it appears real on competency, but it is a dummy. So we are talking about having mannequins as patient dummies for purposes of preclinical skills building. Now, some institutions are telling us we use, let's say, take a level 5 hospital for our clinical skills building. Thika Level 5 Hospital is a health facility offering service to the members of the public, to Kenyans. You cannot send the students to go and kill patients because they don't have the skills required. But at clinical level, Skills Lab, they can mess up with mannequins that are not living until they know exactly what to do. So here we are saying a nurse, a clinician, a pharmacist, and any other that you may think about in your own institution must be taught together in a skills lab for some common units. So that a nurse will know that a nutritionist's role in the health facility is diagnosis, is counseling, is supplementation, and to some extent also is vital statistics collector. Such that if a nurse is not there and a nutritionist is there, taking blood pressure is not a problem because the nutritionist will do it. You don't have to say we are waiting for the nurse to come for the blood pressure to be taken. Taking temperature. Just performing a first aid to a patient, a nutritionist should do. A nurse will not wait for a nutritionist to come and do nutrition assessment and diagnosis. They have understood the language, so they can do it. But then if the worst come to the worst, they make referrals. That is the purpose for this skills lab. So what do we need as a skills lab for training institutions? We need a mimic of a ward with beds properly classified as male, female children, the way it is in any ward. That's what we need. That means if you have like 4 beds, 2 could be for male mannequins, 2 for female, and also a baby mannequin in a court somewhere. A real baby, but in a simulated format. Not coming to find equipment put on bed, and we are saying we have equipment in the skills lab. Properly arranged as a setting for delivering service. So that when a nutritionist comes and a nurse comes, they can both insert routes for feeding together with the clinician. And they know that if you want to feed a patient peripherally, you have to create a route there with granny. And you set up the system in this format with surgical. You can do that on a mannequin but not on a person. Are we together? That is why we need to have that nature of mannequin at your level. When you are doing total parenteral feeding, they hang let's say normal saline delivery. They do it there at the skills lab. They make sure that the patient is there, the mannequin, with a structure for delivering normal saline, properly inserted in the format it would have been inserted in the health facility, with the patient file. Are we together? With the patient file to be checked by all the frontline therapeutic team members. Now, when you do that, all these people will speak one language as health professionals, not isolated or silo-based professionals. So a nurse will know, if I want ABCD assessment for a patient, from a nutritionist perspective, it is anthropometry, biochemical, clinical, dietary. Are we together? But also a nutritionist will know that if you want ABCD for a nurse, then it is airway, what else? Breathing. That one, if you're a nurse. Yes. So you see, these are two people talking about ABC, but from different approaches. Now, if they were not together, somebody will think you are talking about their airways when you really mean anthropometry. That language can only be integrated if all these people learn together. Now, when they go to the facilities, they will begin to know that we are targeting one patient, but we are all working for that patient together as a team. I once went to Thika Level 5 Hospital just to solve a problem of a nutritionist that was denied a chance to make notes on patient file by a doctor because they were told that is not your mandate. That's not your scope of practice. You are not indemnified. Right now we are saying a nutritionist should be able to insert a total parenteral feeding together with a clinician and a nurse and monitor the process, because parenteral feeding is not a doctor's work, it's a nutritionist's work. Feeding people on normal saline or lipid or dextrose is the work of a nutritionist. It is food. So we need this skills lab to be done professionally to integrate all these cadres. So we need to have a talk around that to ensure that we have a typical skills lab that is necessary for our training to train competencies. Now, I want to give an example, just a photo of one of the items in a skills lab that I know. I know Dorothy is here. You will forgive us for that, but it is for North Coast, I think. They have one of the best. And we also have Equip Africa. Is there? Do we have anybody from Equip? No. They also have a skills lab. Now, I'm only using this, but I would recommend that you pay a visit to North Coast. Dorothy, now I'm not marketing you at North Coast. I'm only saying they pay a visit to you. They see exactly what you have with the skills lab. This is the nature of a bed in a skills lab. This is preclinical skills. And you want a student to learn how a ward operates and all the things that happen in the ward. This must be nutritionists. They're not nurses. And you will see that is not the only one that is I can show you. We have serious training going on. The bed is not dirty at all, because you cannot go to a ward and find a dirty bed. Like we find in some institutions, it is just there as a ritual. It's not a real practice. This is a human being with the gut system and the chest properly displayed. And you can easily see the flow of food from the mouth to the end. Dorothy, am I correct? Somebody can swallow and you see how food moves in the stomach. Anybody who knows, who learn with it will know the position of a stomach. Not in theory the way we do for some of our institutions. Sorry. And you will notice they have also invested in many of such mannequins, but you see how this patient lies there. He's not a human being, but you can feel the human being in a ward and do the learning there on the bed side, with all required in a ward, including the trolleys, besides that patient. This is still at preclinical skills level. You see this mannequin is a hand, and it's not a normal hand of a human being. This is the one I like most. Any students who want to learn how to insert feeding route for peripheral will use this hand to make all the mistakes before they make it on the patient. Because it is not a living hand. It is a dummy hand, but it looks like it. If you see this hand that is next and that one, they almost look alike. And the veins are properly displayed. This is practical skills, not theory. And so if you see this kind of student handling a patient at training level, you may think that they are attending to a patient. Are we together? This is real skills, Buonosiemo. Now, thank God you have RAM Hospital. And you also have the training inside RAM Hospital. But they cannot come from from your training area to go to the wards in RAM Hospital and do these preclinical skills. It is violation of service delivery, violations of hospital protocol. So you cannot say, we are using RAM Hospital for this. No. RAM Hospital is a service area. Skills Lab is a preclinical skills area. Now you see, this man here is comfortably lying down, waiting for attendant. And everybody is there to do that. Dorothy, today you are the one on market. Now this is the one I saw, which we should all have. Now we are saying this because North Coast, for example, has invested on preclinical skills. So a student from North Coast who has gone properly through proper training cannot be compared with a student from Bumbesa that did not see this one. If they meet at the facility level, that is obvious. Because in Bumbe, they were using charts to show them what is supposed to be. This one's touched and tried it. They are not the same level of students. Of course, this one some of you have, but this is exactly what you'll find at North Coast. So what are we saying about the Skills Lab? Currently, the gold standard for Kenya on skills training and Skills Lab is in North Coast. Okay? Go and do a benchmarking there if you don't have a facility like this. I know there are others who have tried their best, like Udongo there in Outspan. You imagine that you have, but you don't have as North Coast. So go there and see what they have. And let us standardize by setting it the way they have it. It might be expensive initially, but it is very good because it's going to be used by all cadres that you want to train. You want to start a course in nursing, they will use the same. You want to start clinical officers, public health, so you're not spending money only for nutrition. It's for all cadres. So when you do that, if you go to North Coast now, let me shock you a bit. What you will find now is that they have arranged their setting in such a way that you have a typical ward, you have a consultation room, you have a nutrition section. If you come from assessment and diagnosis, you can get into consultation room for for the clinician or the medical or the physician that is there. And it is set up like a real ward in operation, but in a dummy format, in a simulated format. By a show of hand, how many of us have reached that level in our training institutions? How many of us would want to reach that level? Because what matters is, are you willing? If you are willing, the board is there to approve money. Let them not say that, money is now a big problem. And even the other day, the National Treasury said we stop projects. There's nothing like that. They didn't say that you kill people. You can still make a budget and have a competency training area that is going to be useful for training professionals in this country to deliver services. I've shared that, and we will talk about that again later as people who understand one another in this game of training. So, Bonosemo, when you leave here, you go and think about that one that you had. I went to one institution and I found dummies. Of course, they're mannequins also, but they're meant for clothes. You cannot have those things we get in the streets of Nairobi, River Road, and you put them on the bed and say that now we have a mannequin. It is a shame. It's a shame. And that is exactly what some have, by the way. River Road, you get one meant for a skirt that can give shape. You bring it, put it like that on the bed, and say a mannequin for training. Let us train Kenyans to do things that they are supposed to do for humanity. Those mannequins, you can get them anywhere. Even if you want, you can import them. They are not very expensive. You can, as long as you have the will to set up this clinical lab, skills lab, you will have spent more money but trained many people in different cadres, and nutritionists will benefit. Now, if you go to universities, the same is recommended. Now, at your level, we have allowed you to use models for anatomy. At the university, we are insisting that they must use real anatomy lab with cadavers and claimed bodies. So, yours, you can have the models, but it must be a standard mimic of a ward, properly arranged. Now, in that skills lab, we have two important people or instructors if you are teaching nursing and nutrition. And if you're teaching clinical medicine, you also need 3. So each cadre must have their clinical instructor in that skills lab. A nutritionist knows exactly what they want from the skills lab. Therefore, a nutritionist clinical instructor must be employed there. So the principal says, you must go back and employ clinical instructors if you don't have them. And in that employment, there is also another support instructor at the facility level where you have the MOU, called a preceptor, who works together with this clinical instructor on clinical skills. So when you go to the facility, the preceptor will guide. If you come to the training skills lab, the clinical instructor, nutritionist, will guide. And these two people must arrange for practicals together. So that is an area that I want us to look at it with a different lens. And then basic science and food laboratory. I will not talk much on this. We will not accept any institution that does not have basic labs for basic sciences to train students, because basic science begins with the lab work. But the more important one that we are insisting, and that is why we have called you here, is that any institution training a nutritionist or a dietitian must have a food complex laboratories, which include a general food production lab, a specialized dietetic lab, and a service area. Why? We must teach them service, how to serve people. We must also teach them how to modify diet from normal diet to a therapeutic product. We are insisting there is no need for us to go and import F75, F100 from UK or any other place where they're made, when our students can have the formula for doing F75. You can prepare that here locally and supply the hospitals around if you are serious with the training. There's no need to do that. There's no need for us to go and look for plumpy nuts and import them when we can do them here. You don't need to hire someone to import for you uji. We have made uji ever since we were born. You only need pre-digested uji for enteral feeding. You need amylase, add it, and pre-digest the uji. You get your pre-digested uji on site and give it as enteral feed. Our students can do that if we have necessary equipment that meet ISO 17025 standards. So we need this implemented, and when you leave here, you start talking to our accreditation unit. What kind of lab is this, and how do we want it, or how do you want it to look like? We will give you exactly what is required. And finally, examination. We have received a whistleblower's report. These are one of the trainers. Some of them are professionals. And one of the things they were saying is that NEC does not examine practicals for nutrition and dietetics. And I want this to be very clear. NEC does not examine. And we had confirmed this from NEC, and they said they don't examine practicals. Yet we are training people who are supposed to go and deliver things practically. It means if examination is not practical, then even at training level there is no practical. And if there is a practical being demonstrated, it's a ritual. We have also noticed that students just go for theory, and when they finish, they go to practice. Yet we have prescribed units like meal management, therapeutic nutrition, diet therapy, that is 1 and 2, which require a lot of practicals. What does it mean? That our practical capability for training institution is very minimal. And the whistleblower said that if Kndi doesn't correct this, they will go to court. And they are very right. I agree with them 100%. There is no need to tell us that you have practical hours allocated for units and they are not real practicals delivered on site. And you cannot deliver practicals on site when you don't have the laboratories required for delivery of those practicals. And you don't examine them thereafter. So very soon we will be looking into how practicals are examined as a special inspection, not from our normal. So that we see if you are examining practicals for this unit, where is your lab? What are the equipments there? Who is handling it? Where are the protocols for the practical? How do we examine it? So this is an area that we need good answers. Why we don't examine practicals, yet we are saying we are training people who are supposed to build competencies for service delivery. So this is a whistleblower's report, and you know there are many whistleblowers. Some of them are your own trainers. The ones that you are paying are the ones saying that we don't have this there. Please, we are going to examine students from two aspects. One is theory. Two is practical. And very soon, we will now set up an inspection module or checklist specifically for practicals. Looking at what you do when you are in the facility, what you do when you are in the concentrated clinical practicum, which is weekly, what you do in the skills lab, what you do in the food lab, what you do in the anatomy lab. As a nutritionist, we'll have to assess that. And what you do when you go to the community field work, we'll have to assess that. If we do that well, then we know that these students are coming out with good competencies to deliver those services to humanity. Without that, I can assure you, we are not training. Those are 4 areas we have identified and we wanted to emphasize on. And it is you and us that should help Kenya to come up with students that are practical in nature. You've heard of medical doctors that have operated on wrong patients. Even here in Kenyatta. There was a case that we were handling with the regulatory boards on the same for Kenyatta. And somebody could not just identify a patient that is the correct one. And so they ended up operating on the brain of someone who is healthy. It's because they never tried operating on a brain for a healthy mannequin. The same will apply to our professionals. They should be able to know how even to identify a patient that needs food. Because somebody will come and what did you want to eat? Tick. Then come back with the opposite. I've seen that in Aga Khan. I was admitted and I ticked clearly what I want because in Aga Khan they are a bit special. So that you tick what you want. And when the food is brought, it's a different food, what was available. And you ask them, why is the one I still, unfortunately that one was not there. There's nothing like that. That is treating a patient with wrong regimen. For me, I ordered for what I wanted because I liked it. And psychologically, I'm prepared for it. I can't order fish and you bring me beef. That is a psychological torture, isn't it? And it is good by the time I leave the hospital, I'm more sick than when I went. We don't take charge of this, even as nutritionists. Now, you're feeding a patient, and the nutritionists and the nurses are yelling and they're chatting, and each one say, hey, 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 and they're making noise for this patient who is supposed to eat that require calmness. The patient become more sick. If they had depression, more depression. That is etiquette taught. We are not doing that. So I believe with this, you'll begin to start talking to us. You don't pay us money for accreditation to go and keep quiet. You pay us money so that you can consult within that money, what do I need if I want a skills lab of this nature? If I want it doesn't matter how many times you disturb the accreditation unit. What matters is you have gotten the right direction to go. We have this money we want to implement. What do we need to set up? This is what you need. This is the cost. And then this is how to use it. That is why we are here as regulators. And that is why you are paying the money. You're not paying the money so that we eat the money. You're paying the money so that we can support you to do the delivery of services required. So with that, therefore, I think we have come to an end of this session. This is not the only thing we may need. And for those of us online, maybe Professor Nguka, you wanted to say something? Before I get to the question and answer? Professor Nguka, are you there? Is it there? Yes, Professor Nguka, you can unmute and speak. We are almost coming to an end. If there's any question that you have prepared we can have it, but for if it is concerning the compliance, we have a 10 minutes session after lunch, just 10 minutes, to talk about compliance with the principles. And that is why I was saying, of course, if you're not a principal, it would be very difficult to talk about it. So we'd just have all the principles and the people representing the principles, so that those representing the principle can now take the message. But this is purely for the principles, so that we see how best we can do all this together. Professor Nguka, if you are there, you can go ahead and speak. Somebody wants to speak?
I want to speak. I want to ask some questions concerning this session.
This is Olivia. Yes.
Yeah, my question is, okay, it's actually an elaborate insight in what really involves training. But my concern is one, we have talked about vital signs and ability of the nutrition students to work together with nurses. What I don't know is it now part of the roles and responsibilities of nutritionists as a profession to be checking vital signs? Because basically this means we'll be teaching the students patient care. Also, when you look at the curriculum was for diploma and certificate, such competencies are not included in either therapeutic nutrition or dietetic management. For us to be able to teach students, basic patient care. If it is so, then we should consider including it in the syllabus, because the trainers who assign these units are guided by our syllabus. TPN and PPL, the way we teach it in the syllabus is on prescription and not instruction of the tubes. So I don't know if the syllabus changed. And then my other question is...
Can I just answer that first, then, so that we don't forget? Olivia, if you allow. Thank you. As a nutritionist, and I know you are one, I know you are a principal, but you are also a nutritionist. If you are doing competency training, the course curriculum, which is given in form of course description, is descriptive in nature. And so it is the responsibility of a trainer to interpret how they want to teach best. And so we expect you to teach this if you learned it in school. And so bring it on board. If you find difficulty, you can consult. But I want Professor Nguka to answer that question very clearly to you, because that is an area that we have successfully inputted. Two, we have already in the under Kenya Health Professionals Oversight Authority, this is a message that is very clear now on the teamwork when it comes to insertion. It is a joint process and it is indemnified. That is why we have the Act. So there's no fear there, unless the nutritionists themselves fear due to lack of competencies. So Professor, you can answer that question. Professor, you can go ahead before we give Olivia a chance for the last question. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like to... I've heard the question that has been asked by the principal. I hope that's the principal of the institutional trainers.
Yes.
The competencies are very clear. First and foremost, I know you are aware that we have divided training into 3 major components at the various levels: the certificate, diploma, and degree level. The nutrition officers, nutrition technology. So based on that, those specific competencies have been proposed. Even if you look at our manual, the internship manual, which is basically the degree, those are some of the competencies that have been proposed and are indicated to be provided for. Reasons is that it is part of their responsibility to be able to provide nutrition or feeding or nutrients to the body at whatever cost. And this is following the interactions with the industries, wherever they are. For example, most nutritionists get employed or get to work with NGOs in the various parts of the world, particularly in very hard areas where those competencies are needed jointly to be able to ensure that we deliver services that are required to be provided by a nutritionist or a dietitian. Ensure that nutrients reach the body at whatever circumstance. Now, when the curriculum was developed, this was done. And competencies have been suggested. And we have continuously educated people, the trainers, that these are competencies that are required. On the norms, not norms and standards, but there was something about task sharing policy, even though it has since been shelved in the Court of Law. But the intentions of task sharing policies are the specific tasks that are shared within the cadres. Among the tasks are the tasks that I talked about, including working at a trial. It's cross-cutting issue. There is no need of denying, for example, a nutritionist from knowing how to use a thermometer, a sphygmomanometer, pulse oximeter, and training other cadres. For example, community health volunteers and community health workers skills on all this, and they're left. That means they are being rendered or being limited from service delivery, either intentionally, just to make them not be able to deliver services. Secondly, it is also required as part and parcel of their physiological understanding. And nutritionists and dietitians are highly or require high level of training of physiology. Body physiological operations are assessed through those parameters. So that is another leap that we are ensured. And this has done more than 10 years ago. I think since we started implementing the curriculum, since the year 2012. And even when we were developing the, forget about the dietetics management, because that was not part of us. But at least for the nutrition and dietetics curriculum that was done between us and the 12CP, that was with us in mind. So we expect, and even from your own perspective of training as trainers, how do you expect a nutritionist, for example, if we were a nutritionist, to make a decision over the amount of calories without knowing the temperature? And yet we know the body temperature determines the caloric requirement. If you look at Pireton's Bennett's equation or Harris Benedict equation, those are aspects that is included. I don't know whether we are speaking. So in aspects, in the rationale of ensuring that they deliver services accordingly, it is only necessary that we have those competencies included. And that is why we have been emphasizing on skills laboratory that is all-encompassing to bring all these people together and be able to ensure that they are able to deliver services. For the nutrition officers, we have indicated very clearly they must insert at least a few and feed successfully during internship. And if you look at that number, it is there. However, most people don't do it because of these, these aspects. But during training, we try as much as possible that is captured. So we want to, just like you train your nurses, just like you train
your clinicians, for those who are training clinicians, please allow and ensure that nutritionists have those specific competencies and are able to do that. That is part and parcel of their activity that they're supposed to do.
Oh, yes, Olivia, you can ask the second question so that we come back here.
I think that is well replied. No, since one to say that it's not in the curriculum, you're saying for ICT because that's what we use. Maybe we have interpreted it wrongly, so we embark on it. The second question, in terms of nutrition, community nutrition and clinical nutrition are extensively covered in our curriculums. However, today with the interest in sports nutrition, I don't see its strength in our curriculum.
Maybe what I would advise, Madam Principal, when you have, it is your work also with your team, the trainers, to review the curriculum implementation. And I think so far we have requested many institutions, all institutions, I think, to give us a feedback on curriculum. And I don't know whether you sent one, but we only received from one institution. So it's also the responsibility of us to, as we implement the curriculum, we see gaps so that if it's a matter of advising KICD. But I think it is an area that we are going to pick up again. If you have more information on what is a gap, you can send it to us. So that, because we are in the process of reviewing our current curriculum. And also...
in addition, maybe can I add something?
Yes, you go ahead, Prof.
Yes, I think Madam Principal has said it correctly. Or some of the, one of the biggest areas is now sports nutrition, which is coming in very, very strongly. And I want to agree with her that it is an aspect that has not been covered. However, within the Kndi curriculum, we have given what we refer to as the basics to allow institutions to also grow into their niche areas. In Masina Muliro, for example, I have a niche area in clinical nutrition, but I want to also tell you that we have also increased our coverage of sports nutrition. But that might be different from other curricula in other universities. But I want to agree that it's a component that can be provided for and is necessary to be able to increase and improve our competencies in the area of sports nutrition or nutrition and physical activity in general. Sports nutrition is industrial area, but in terms of the training and physiological need, you actually focus on physical activity and nutrition and athletics aspects.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Do we have any other question online before we come back to those present physically? Someone was asking about indexing. Is it necessary to index a diploma licensed student who is upgrading? We do indexing once. Is that correct? Yeah. We don't do indexing at every stage. Once someone is indexed at certificate, if they're upgrading, they maintain their index number, and the only thing they will pay for is examination fees for the diploma. I hope that answers your question, Ali. I think that's okay, unless there's any other question. We can pick questions from here, one or two. Our lunch is on the way, so we're just finalizing. We can pick questions from here for answer. Martin will be going around.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Helen. I had around 3 questions, and I wanted to find out first, at what time should a student be able to sit for the professional upgrading exam? especially because we've had a few challenges with our students. Because once we get a student who is interested in doing nutrition, they have to pay school fees, they have to index, and some of them have to sit for the professional grading exam. And then I think followed with another question, maybe. What happens if a student fails that exam? What are the consequences? Then the last question is, maybe you can tell us, Daktari, if you have any interest in short courses that would probably complement the nutrition course. Thank you.
Let me quickly answer that before we get to another person. I think the question you are asking is at what point do students enter with upgrade program? Those are disadvantaged students. It should happen when they express interest. So before you admit them, they must pass upgrade exams. I know there are some who have admitted and then they send them for upgrade. It's not correct, because if they fail and they are denied the chance, it becomes a problem. So advertise, let them express interest, send us the names, let them apply, pass, admit them officially. So that should be one. If they fail, they have a chance to repeat once, to resit. If they fail, they stop, they don't continue with the program. Short courses is an area that we wouldn't want to enter into before we see that you are compliant with the normal courses. Even though we have expressions for short courses in our other programs, particularly the CPD, Continuing Professional Development, we have that guideline and policy, but it's only meant for those who want to offer CPD programs that would provide CPD points for already practicing professionals, both specific ones or cross-cadre. So we have no problem with that, but you must demonstrate that you have also complied with the mainstream or main training requirements. Yeah.
Good afternoon. Yeah, I think my question will go to interprofessional education, which you mentioned that we are having different cadres working together. We've been working on that and even taking students to the clinical area. If you take them as a group, it's comfortable for them to work in the wards because they're accepted by other cadres. And you find that the nutritionist will be able to do what you just mentioned. But if you take nutritionists independent, they will be placed at the nutrition department. And they will not be allowed to do these other things, even triaging, which is key for us as nutritionists. So I don't know, maybe from your side, what you do to empower hospitals, which majority of them are ward managers, are nurses, and they feel this is their area. Yet, the patient is one, and we need to give patient-centered care.
No problem. That is what we are working on, and it's just by a letter. You just alert us that it's not possible, and we will help you because we work together with the Nursing Council. So we'll tell the CEO, Edna, can you tell your people to embrace collective responsibility? But our emphasis was you start training them so that they get this into their brain when they are trainees. Then they will now practice it when they are in service. The ones behaving like that are those who studied in silos as a nurse, as a nutritionist. Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kndi. I have two questions. One is based on indexing, and another one is based on the legal notices. Now, based on what you are being told about indexing, we were informed that indexing has there are two ways. We have what we call the individual, the student can go and apply for himself or herself, and two, the institution can also apply for the students. Now, I'm on the concern on the way the institution is applying for the students. We are told that it involves a cover letter from the head of the institution and the name of the student, ID number, email address, phone number, and the total amount paid by the student, and the last including the admission number. Now, based on the individual, if one is applying individually, we are told that he or she needs to attach a passport size, an ID, and a KCSE cert. Now, if the institution is applying for the indexing for the students, does it require the attachment, the ID, the photocopies of the ID, and the passport size?
I think that will come at the next phase. So once they get that, they will receive a code, a token, and they start the process like they paid through M-Pesa. Yeah.
Thank you. Then on the legal notice about payment for the compliance, that is the diploma and the certificate. But you told us that for diploma is after 4 years. Then you say that the next cycle begins. Is it applying for the new license or?
Yes, with the new inspection. Okay. Because after 4 years, things will have changed quite a lot. So we have to do re-inspection.
Thank you. Mine is to reinforce on the question that my brother was asking concerning the penalties that you said about the indexing. When will that begin?
Oh, that one started many years. We didn't just implement. We said we give you time and we give professionals time, but it was almost 2017 to date. It has been there. It's only that it's not implemented.
When is it being implemented?
Even tomorrow.
Thank you very much. My name is Mr. Sambo. I just want to appreciate the low cost for the presentation on the skills lab.
So when you go there, you pay.
Okay.
Yes.
So thank you for the great work you're doing. I will come there for the marking.
Yes.
So one of my questions is about indexing students who may be indexed, but along the way they are unable to complete the course due to the fail on the way. Can they come for refunding? That is one question.
For what reason?
In case one student can fail and maybe they fail to come back to college.
But they have been tracked up to the level where they have failed.
Yeah.
So it's a process, sir. So if you refund them the money, who will pay for the damage and the person working on how they are refunded? You get the sense? Yes, but if there's somebody who was applied to join and didn't join, but they had paid for indexing, we refund that one.
Thank you for that. The second one, just the challenge was securing the MOUs with the health facilities, the government facilities. So
you are from private?
Yeah? No, government facility. We are in the government facility. But sometimes getting those facilities so that we take our students weekly has become a challenge. So on our side,
just let us know.
You can assist us.
Yes, just let us know. If you are government to government and somebody is saying you can't use facility, that person needs to be reported to Ombudsman. Because that is obvious. Unless you are private. Private is what we can negotiate, but government to government, that must be somebody sleeping on the job.
Okay, thanks for the opportunity. First, to comment on the integration. As having experience at degree level, I realize it is much easier to integrate other cadres in training, more so in the ward round. We had a weekly clinical rotation at UTRH, and we would be treated as health students, and we would be asked questions randomly, irrespective of your area of training. So the consultant would ask a nutritionist specific questions related to nutrition, delivery, as the same as pharmacy students, medical doctor students. So there was much easier way to integrate the training. But again, I understand it is a little bit challenging at diploma and certificate, but we are going to improve. Maybe.
Why is it a challenge?
One of the main challenge, and I believe the principals can bear, most of the skills lab are profession-owned.
Okay, now that is what we had said.
Yeah.
And I think we were in your institution last.
Yes.
And we said that very well. There is nothing called nurse skills lab. It is skills lab for all health cadres. And in future, it is the work of the principal to declare that all facilities belong to the institution, not individual departments. I think so, yes.
Yeah, thanks. So that is the first comment. Now the second one, in the effort of protecting nutrition profession, and one of the participants has actually talked about a short course, but there is an upcoming short course which is a threat to most of the
nutrition in TB.
Not really, but health support service. Okay. If you realize that it also takes nutritionists at certificate level and diploma level can participate in food production in the hospital and even do food service, because we train planning, production, and service in meal planning. But our students do not get chance to practice that because hospital foods are managed by caterers and support staff. But that is an area which can actually provide employment opportunity for a diploma and certificate level. So why my question is, do the council have a platform to raise scheme of service to align food production process in the hospital so that it can be entirely for nutrition certificate and diploma? The second question is that on the period of submission of the indexing fee, and also students with the index, the kind of entry behavior, or the entry behavior, or the student characteristics that we receive, they are somewhat digitally weak. You find that they are not well exposed to computer. Okay. So we request, can the period be extended so that we can introduce them to digital literacy or train them on how to apply, because it is a challenge. Most of them do not even know how to use Google Classroom. We have to take almost a month to train them on such basic skills.
Odongo, which students are you receiving now? If standard 4s are already,
it's actually a challenge.
Already up oriented.
It's actually a challenge.
But then this is the thing, yeah? You can set up a support system. That's why when we come for inspection, the first thing we look at, do you have IT department and you have IT section? That is in the checklist. So you are only reporting yourself that you are not using the IT section. And when we come, you tell us this is our IT side. So what is the IT doing? You want to report yourself further? We have seen students being assisted for just registration, online registration. You can do the same for indexing. That should be the last part of online registration. That's okay. Yes. And we will try it with Outspan first, yes.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So I'm asking about if a student has progressed during the certificate level, and this student is progressing to diploma level, is the same student going to upgrade on the core unit?
What do you mean by upgrade?
Like the main grade. When
are you talking about a student is at certificate level and wants to do a diploma?
Yes.
That's not upgrade.
Okay, so this student upgraded during certificate level. I'm talking about the core units. For example, she failed in biology and then upgraded. Yeah? Mm-hmm. And then now, amemaliza certificate level. She wants to proceed to do a diploma course.
Professional upgrade?
Yeah.
No, you do it once. If you
do
pass,
it once,
yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes. That is our professional upgrade.
But now in this diploma level,
yes,
maybe mathematics and maybe the rest I'll qualify to do certificate. But
okay,
now,
this is what happens. Once you have a certificate, the certificate itself is a qualification to enter diploma.
Okay.
So you don't need to check the classes again.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yes.
Question number 2. We have these students, they were not in the system of 844 system.
Yeah.
But ile ya kitambo. I don't remember if it was 2-7.
The old A-level.
Yeah, that one. Are they going to be treated the same as the 844 students?
The admission criteria are individual based with the institutions, but if it is looking at our subjects, we also have conversions for A-levels, even GPS. So there's no problem with that.
Okay, thank you for
Just need to consult and find out what about these students who scored 2.5 in GPS.
Yeah.
What is the equivalent? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Okay.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm Bramwell. My question goes to the seminar session, specifically on practical examinations. You've told us that you'll be moving around to check on how we are doing practicals on our laboratories and how to examine those practicals. So I'm also asking, are you going also to check on it in terms of NEC to ensure that our student also can have those NEC practicals or not?
NEC is part of Kndi in the accreditation committee, so they already have this information. So it will start from NEC, but now we are coming up with a new direction where we are going to offer our own exams. So it's not a must that we will have to do NEC, but in the near future, you will be offering your own exams. So what we are talking about is that all areas need to be examined. You've not seen it somewhere? It's coming up. NEC might be left for high school, so that when you train, you examine what you trained. I think the national politics are doing that already. Yeah. So. Okay. Just do this. Good. Any other question? The last, yes.
Mine is not a question, rather just a compliment. I think on the basis of what you have just said concerning NEC, I think the circular is out, and every institution is working with the modalities. And then number 2, as we are training this cadre, which is nutrition, and where we practice pharmacy, let's broaden the scope of these students, because now we are having some of the nutrition guys going into anthropology, some of these guys going into deep science, and it's an area. I'm really encouraged with what the board is doing, and I know they are actually opening for more and more students. Let's not limit them. As we were consulting here, one of the key areas, as we try to close it, then we'll be asking ourselves, what about hospitality? That's where our interest will be. But let's make our students more competitive to compete with these particular groups. Thank you so much.
Professor, you want to say something?
Sorry, yes, I just want to say, well, thank you so that I could leave.
Yes.
I wanted to end with that.
That's okay.
But I wanted to leave the members of the institutions just a word of encouragement that nutrition is the in thing when it comes to matters health, and well-trained professionals is key to this. I would like to leave them with the responsibility of ensuring that all professionals who will be trained under their purview, they endeavor that they see the highest standard of training for service delivery, both to themselves as members of the citizens of this country, but also to the public in general. Otherwise, thank you. And I appreciate everyone that has attended this.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof. As you exit, we have taken note of your concern and your encouragement also. So you can now exit. Maybe on reaction of own examinations and talking about modalities, we are going to make it even more difficult examination process, so that when you are now allowed to do your own exams, there must be also strict procedures. And one of these days, again, we are going to talk about oversight for that particular examination process, because it involves many things like even external examination. You cannot set exams and mark and administer yourself. So there will be cross-examination from different colleges. So as you think about the modalities, we have already set up a policy for that, for nutrition. And that will be rolled out very soon. I think if that's the case, then we can stop there. How far is the lunch? We can stop there. I hope the meeting was educative. And for those online, we are just closing now, and you can actually exit. As Professor has already encouraged us, we wish you, Hassan Noor, thank you very much for joining your colleague, your team member, Professor, for this. Do you have anything to say before our trainers exit? Oh. Hassan, apparently we cannot hear from Mandera. Maybe if you leave us with a word on the chat box, it would be very good. We can pass the message to them. It's like it's breaking. So you can do that on the chat box, then we will pass the message to our trainers. So thank you very, very much, everyone. So we are going to have a photo session just here. Okay. So Kevin and T.